You know, I'm trying to save a tree. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the budget presentations today for City Council. Today's date is Wednesday, June the 12th, 2024. And I'm looking forward to another afternoon full of good information about this year's biennium budget. So, Mr. Carlson from the Mayor's Office, welcome.
Council Chair, council members, thank you again for setting aside time to host departments down here to discuss with you the beginnings of the budget development here with City Council. Like yesterday, we'll have our departments go through a department at a time here and present some of the basic information that they have and engage in discussion with you and take any questions that we can answer right now and record any questions that we may have for later. And again, this is the beginning part of the process that can help inform the public and get you whatever information you need over the next couple months towards the budget public hearing as you work to develop the budget. We'll meet again. No, sorry, we're not going to meet again. Or we will meet again, but not in this official setup. But we'll have these departments here. And I will start with our first department, which is Lincoln Lancaster County Human Services, and invite Sarah Hoyle up.
Woo-hoo. Welcome, Director Hoyle.
Good afternoon. This is like a dream come true. The three council members that are probably most familiar with my department are present today, so this will be super easy. Thank you. Just to review our mission, and we went through a strategic planning session actually this year in our department where we came up with a new mission and identified new goals, and now we're intending to do that every 6 months and update everything at least annually. So we're excited with that process. New mission, very similar to the old one, to collaborate with the overall human services safety net in Lancaster County, facilitate funding opportunities, and foster an inclusive and diverse community. We work with families and youth to prevent them from entering or moving further into the formal justice system. So again, you all are very familiar with our office, but we are a joint department, city, county. Our staff are county employees. Our office is funded 50-50 city, county. I say that, but most of our revenue comes in the forms of state grant funding for our staff. So you pay for very little staff in our office. Operations, total budget that you're paying for is about $300,000 of our office. So not a huge ask here. And then Human Services has 3 primary functions. The first one being overseeing funding opportunities from our mission statement, right? So we oversee joint budget committee funds, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. We have state pass-through funding, federal pass-through funding, Keno funding, and then we also, just through various contracts that we have with entities in the community to do the important work that augments government services, right? So food bank, community action program, places like that help doing the important work that that government contributes to. So that's one function. The other function is general assistance. So individuals in the community who need help with medical, although predominantly with Medicaid expansion, we've seen that demand wane significantly, but still people who may need help with various assistance matters, and then also burials, cremations, that type of assistance we provide through that avenue. And then the third area is juvenile justice. So prevention, early intervention, basically all diversion from truancy diversion to law violation diversion up until the time a kid is actually adjudicated in court. So even kids that are taken in by law enforcement to our detention center and then they're screened out there by probation, we monitor those kids in the community up until the point of time that they go before a judge. So those are the 3 primary areas that our office does. The goals and how we contribute to the overall goals of your city mission that you have and your identified goals and objectives. We support the needs of a safe and healthy community. We do that in our office through a collaborative approach to help families be successful in school, support accessible, quality, and research-based programming, use data to inform programming goals and performance outcomes, seek and administer quality grants, and then collaborate with community and system partners for services. Our office overview. We don't have a large office, and the reason being is we all say the magic happens in the community, right? So when we talk about kids on diversion, yes, we have diversion officers, diversion caseworkers, but we're not doing the magic with them. Part of the case plan that they have is partnering with those people in the community that do the important work. So partnering with places like Malone Center, with Lighthouse, with the Bay, places that serve communities, that serve kids where they live at, because that's where we want them connected to. We want them to know that they can go to those places for years to come for help. We're going to be out of their lives. They'll still have that connection. So when you look at our office, we have a lot of them here today. Yes. The accounting specialist, you don't pay for this. This is strictly county funds, so city funds don't go towards this. The screening specialist, our pre-adjudication specialist. This individual is the one that supervises kids on the monitor. Screening specialist, every youth that has a law violation that is diversion eligible. In our city county, there is a validated risk assessment that's completed by our screening specialist. And that risk assessment we started, oh my gosh, almost a decade ago now. It's been a while, but we've been nationally recognized for it because what it does is it's looking at the most effective method to serve kids in the community, right? And it's really looking at saving taxpayer funding. If the parent has held the youth accountable and they know that a wrong has been committed, they addressed it, then why are we as taxpayers getting involved in these people's lives, right? We send it on to the county attorney with the assessment, case is done, move on. So that is the point of the screening assessment. We have 4 caseworkers that also oversee the juvenile diversion kids and, of course, general assistants. And then we have a quality assurance coordinator, too, who is looking more at data and making sure that we're aligning with best practice in our office. So, and then you all know Jenny. And this year, too, we started a partnership with the American Job Center. So Ava, through the American Job Center, is here, and she's the one that actually put this presentation together. So thank you, Ava. Grants, here's just a short overview of the amount of grant funding. Again, we write federal, state grants, and then we pass through those grants to different community agencies that are doing the important work. Through Joint Budget Committee, we have about 21 contracts. Juvenile Justice Prevention Funds, which is strictly county funds, about 22 contracts. This amount you're looking at here was for the current fiscal year, so the fiscal year that ends June 30th for the county. And then the city county funds, right? When you look at our office budget, again, pretty small. The significant portion of it is personnel. Right next to personnel is the data. And again, when we're looking at data, that's the contract with the University of Nebraska. So for about 4 or 5 years now, we've contracted with the University of Nebraska to look at system point data. So for kids in the system. So looking at kids that were arrested, looking at kids that go into court, that come into our office, and trying to figure out exactly what methodology, what intervention is working with what type of kids, so that we can have an evidence-based program, so that we are putting services in place for families and they're working. That's what we want to know. We also wanted to make sure that we, as a government, didn't have any policies or practices that were inherently pushing kids further into the system, right? So we wanted the university, we wanted an objective party to be able to look at that and to give us information. Now, this has increased a little bit over the last year because the juvenile side was making this work. We were getting objective data from the university. Then the adult side said, what about us? We want to start looking at the adults and what works with adults. So when we added the adults, it doubled that contract, the price of that contract. So that's kind of where you see the increase with data. And then the rest is Operation IS. Okay, Joint Budget Committee. This is the city contribution to the Joint Budget Committee. As you can see, a bulk of it goes, and I should back up to the Joint Budget Committee looks at early child care. There's 3 different areas. 2 of you are on the Joint Budget Committee, so this is then, and you, okay. So we're looking at basic needs and victim services is one area. Another area is behavioral health, and then we've recently added early child care to the mix. Okay, we'll come back to the JBC here in just a second, but getting more into juvenile justice, when you look at our data, Here's the successful discharges. We run about between 80 and 85% for success rate. Recidivism, when you're looking at recidivism, we measure at 6, 12, and 24 months. And this recidivism is law enforcement contact. So when you're looking at other recidivism, a lot of times people compare us to probation, totally different. Probation's looking at adjudications within 1 year. So the fact that they have to be picked up by law enforcement and then actually go in front of enough evidence to go in front of a judge. This is just contact with law enforcement, what we're looking at. So we're looking at recidivism. Our recidivism rate compared to other localities, it looks really good. Middle school truancy, and again, let me go back to diversion, and you all know this, but just to kind of give an overview, in Lancaster County, kids get multiple opportunities at diversion, and we do that because we know a kid's brain is not developed until age 25, right? So they can come through truancy diversion, they can come through our school-based diversion, they can go through regular diversion and then come back for intensive diversion. So multiple opportunities at diversion. Middle school truancy diversion. We work with the schools on when kids miss an equivalent of 20 days or more, they're referred over to the county attorney's office. County attorney sends them to our office, and then we work with the mediation center to do a restorative dialogue where the school is present with the family, and we talk about how are we best going to get this youth and the family engaged in school, and then we come up with a plan and we monitor it. You're going to see a dip between 23 and 24, and that is because we really started working with the schools and the county attorney's office to make sure that there's statute in place on what schools need to incorporate into a collaborative plan. So working to make sure that all of the necessities, all of the components are wrapped up into that collaborative plan before they enter the juvenile justice system. So that's why you saw that dip. Pre-adjudicated community services, again, these are kids that would otherwise be in detention but are supervised in the community on a monitor. We have about a 70% success rate there. Success for this program is basically getting them to court without another crime being committed. This particular program takes kids who have allegations from manslaughter all the way down to burglary. We've supervised on this. And then Restore. Restore is our school-based diversion program that we started with Georgetown University, and this is really looking at the number of kids that come through basically who are cited at schools for assaults or disturbing the peace. And this is a pre-diversion program, so this does not count towards any type of diversion eligibility in subsequent years. And then, I talked about this before, but because we know kids' brains aren't fully developed until age 25, time for kids is totally different than time for us. And so a couple months for a kid looks very different than a couple months for you and I. So one of the things we really try to do in our office is try to get this kid in and their family as close to the offense date as possible. Because we know that if we wait a couple months, and when we first started tracking this, we had some as far out as a year had passed. And when you get a kid in that did something a year ago, they don't know what they did because there's a lot that's happened in that little kid's life in those 12 months, right? So we really, this is something that we track. We work with law enforcement and the county attorney really to make sure that we're trying to get kids in and out of our program as fast as possible. Assessments, again, this is doing a validated risk assessment on all kids that pick up a law violation that are diversion eligible. And again, pretty high success rate in getting families engaged here. 94% of our families are completing these. This is something that the university put together for us. They wanted to see, okay, the risk assessment that you're using, how valid is it? What is the probability that if we look at the score, is it really telling us that the higher risk kids are picking up more offenses and the lower risk kids are not? Yes. And the university says, yep, you're using the right assessment. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then the assessment time frame, again, looking to see how close are we talking to these families from the offense date. And really, our assessment specialist usually tries to get them completed within a week. And you can see it's running about 7 days from the time we get the referral to the time we interview the family and the kid. You all know that we're involved in a number of different community activities, so these are just kind of some of them that our office is engaged with. Joint Budget Committee. Okay, I talked about this before. Essentially, the Joint Budget Committee is an avenue that the city and the county has to distribute funding to our nonprofit entities who are really doing that important work that augment government services, right? And so this is the process we have in place to really use data that's provided by our community partners to see where the needs are and then to allocate that funding to different areas, right? And the university also, because we want to make sure that the money that the city and the county are putting towards these services are working. So the university also looks at data. They work with these agencies. They say, okay, here's what you were funded for. Let's put performance measures in place so that we can show that what you're being paid to do is actually working and serving a purpose. So we just put out a couple of these to illustrate here, but CASA, court-appointed special advocates, again, we give them funding to help train volunteers to come into our courts, to oversee kind of what is happening with kids, make sure their court case keeps moving. And you can see here, children who spend fewer days in the system are more likely to reach permanency, right? We know if you have a court-appointed special advocate on your case, you're going to move through the system. You're going to reach permanency faster. And permanency, of course, is finding a permanent home, right? Not going through foster care forever and ever. Cedars Emergency Shelter. Again, Cedars administers a standardized individual assessment to all clients. Data collected both at intake and discharge shows that there's significant improvement between the domains that they measure. So these are, again, the living assessments that they're completing. Is the child more stable when they discharge than when they enter? Yes, they are. And Centerpoint, same thing. The Centerpoint uses the daily living assessment that measures a multitude of different stability types of questions. Are they using? Are they more financial stable? All of the types of things that you know that goes into daily living components. And again, we see again that when people are admitted, there's a there's a increase between when they're admitted to when they're discharged. Hope Spoke outpatient therapy, again, same thing, you can see. And then St. Monica's, when they're looking at post-traumatic stress disorder, they're seeing a decline between being admitted and being released. And the most important part of our office is Barney, of course, who is asleep. But when you look at Barney, what Barney has done, and just so you know, Barney is our facility dog, which I know you all are aware of. We share him between our office, the county board's office, the county attorney, and then the police department use him when they're interviewing children, witnesses, or victims. And so Barney goes and visits all different departments and just kind of makes everyone's day. So those are our Barney stats.
I appreciate that you're tracking how many cups of dog food Barney consumes.
I may have gone over 15 minutes. I think I did. I'm sorry. But what? Oh, okay. Perfect. Well, that's what I have. I stopped trying to talk fast. Questions?
Right. Do any counselors have questions for Director Hoyle? Yes, go ahead, Counselor Weber.
Thank you, Chair Washington. And Director, thank you for coming down. I may have missed it. I showed up a little bit late. Keno funding.
Yes.
What's kind of the status of Keno funding and how's that impacted human services?
Right. I just asked for an update on this not too long ago. And the Keno revenue is pretty much, it hasn't started waning yet.
Great.
But then at the same time, the casino is not fully, like, it doesn't have a place to eat yet. It doesn't have everything set up. So I think we're expecting to see an overall decrease in Keno revenue once that casino gets up and running fully. Was I right in stating that? Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dollar forecast.
Yes.
Absolutely, to be determined.
Yep.
Any other questions? Yeah, Councilman Bowers.
So with the casino funding, part of that going towards, offsetting, potential decrease, I think what was proposed for the casino dollars was like $710 to affordable housing, $350 to parks, and $100,000 for childcare, and then the rest to offset any decreases revenue. Do you know how the county is splitting up their casino revenue dollars?
Yep, absolutely. And the county just talked about this a couple weeks ago. The county intends to allocate half of their gaming funding towards the Human Services Safety Net. And they indicated they want to partner with the Joint Budget Committee in doing this. When we look at different communities and how it impacts them, it impacts communities different, right, depending upon what services they already have in place. And so I think one of the things the county board really intended to do was to rely on using a data-driven approach. So we wanted to rely on like Lincoln Vital Signs. We wanted to look at community health endowment and see how that casino is really going to impact our community, and let the Joint Budget Committee then try to figure out kind of where that impact is. These are, gosh, I could go on and on about this, but these are all services that it's the cost of doing government, right? So we're just not talking about, you mentioned rent assistance, but it's so much more than rent assistance. I mean, you're talking about children's services. You're talking about potential treatment services in there. You're talking about food. I mean, people, when we're talking about gambling addiction and things that go along with that, when we look at other communities, there's an increase in bankruptcy filings, right? And how that all feeds into your whole social service safety net. So I think, long story short, I think the county wants to make sure when they invested this funding and they allocated half of it to the Human Services Safety Net, they wanted to make sure that our taxpayers weren't paying, right, for the costs of gaming, and then they also wanted to make sure that their funds were going to where it really was impacting our community. So that was a long-winded answer to
But helpful.
Yeah. We also heard that there was, I believe, going to be an increased investment into JVC from the city side of things. Do you know what the dollar amount is of that?
So they increased it by 3%, and then they left. Last year they put in $100,000 for childcare, and so they're leaving that $100,000 in again for this year.
Do you know what that 3% number is?
Oh, I think comes out to about 2018, 19. About 18. Yeah.
Can you go back to the slide where it had the JVC breakdown where, it said how much the city invests and how much the county invests?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I had that up here, but I can tell you.
Didn't
Let me
see one.
see. This is just the.
Go back a little bit.
Oh,
There
right
you
here. Got it. Yep.
Okay, so your department is funded 50/50, is supposed to be funded 50/50 through the city and the county, right?
Yep.
So like when I look at this in the county, the county puts in 1.6 to JVC, the city puts in 600,000 for JVC, and then the county puts in 400,000 through JJPF. The city puts in about 300,000 through Keno. So it looks like there's about, if we wanted to stay true to 50/50, we're about $1 million short on the city side.
Mike.
Oh. Sorry, I'll rephrase what I just said for since my microphone is off. Sorry to the press that's listening.
Start with 50/50.
Yeah. So, what I said earlier was about how the county splitting their casino dollars versus how the city splitting their casino dollars. The county splitting it 50/50, or giving 50% to human services. I asked what the 3% increase was from the city. That comes out to about 18,000. The slide that we're looking at now, it looks like from county funds awarded for joint budget is 1.6 million. From the city for joint budget, it's about 600,000. From the county for JJPF is about 400,000, and from the city for Keno it's about 300,000. So I mean, if you're saying that your department's funded 50/50, it looks like the city may be almost about $1 million behind what the county puts in.
Yeah, correct. And a couple things. The Keno revenue, it's administered through the city, so it shows up as city funds, but it's actually city county, so it's half city, half county, because 5% of the city, 5% of the county, and then it goes into city funds. So I have it broken under city, but it's not 100% city. And then with the JVC, yes. So right now, the Joint Budget Committee, the county contributes about 75% of it, and then the city about 25%. Historically, it's kind of run like that, although over the last decade, the county has been putting more funds in to try to just offset the need that we have in the community, right, with basic needs and so forth. So, yes, did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, totally did.
Okay.
I think Brody had
A little bit of that too. when
Yeah,
you-
Councilman Weber, please.
Thank you, Chair Washington. Director, you said that the county has been increasing their contribution to the JBC. Historically, though, what's that arrangement been like?
It historically, as far as what the county has given, or
Yes, yeah, contributed, yeah.
Historically, the county has always contributed more since inception than the city. There was a time during the recession where the county funds dipped. The county has taken, they've made it a priority to get back to where it was and exceed it. So just to kind of give you an idea, since 2013, the county has invested about $1 million more in JBC than they had previously. So they keep investing more in it. This year, they put in an additional $650,000.
So that dip during the recession, has the contributions from the county, has it been to account for the dip that occurred during the recession?
It's part of it was, but then also to build it back up,
Okay.
to put more infrastructure in place for our human services.
And
Yeah.
then at the beginning of the arrangement, was the intent kind of a 70-30 split, or
Yeah.
what was the original intent of the agreement?
There was never, going back through the interlocal for joint budget committee, there was never the county will contribute this much, the city will, that was never spelled out. The only place that was spelled out was in the Keno interlocal, where each were contributing 5%. So
5%. Okay. I would like to, I know this is a conversation that's important for all of us to have it clear. And so, because I think there's a little bit on the apples and oranges, human services is a county function. It's within the county, and the city puts in 50% of the operations of human services. And then JBC is a subset of that. And I guess maybe we would need to see it. We have an interlocal agreement today. Is that correct?
Yep.
So I think maybe we should all get a copy of the interlocal agreement so that we can see what the commitment is, what the agreement was. And then we can size that up against, sort of the contributions from the county and the city. And I know I overrode your
you're good.
desire to speak.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're covering what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, because I just want to make certain that we've got apples aligned and oranges aligned here, because we all have different responsibilities, we all have a different level of commitment to different programs, and I am a member of the JBC and really happy to be a part of that because the work is so necessary. But I also want to make certain that we're working with the correct set of expectations and responsibilities.
yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, there's, I'll get you a copy of that, but there's no predetermined amount that was ever set in JBC that the city will contribute or the county will contribute. I think the understanding was it would go based upon needs, right, in the community. And I think that's where we get kind of nervous with this casino, the gaming funding, right? Because we just don't know. And we know within the city limits already there's a great need, especially with our human services infrastructure. And it's scary to think of what that could look like if we don't fully invest in it. So,
Yeah, and there are a lot of impacts to, I think, there are the potential for impacts to the city from the casino that will
Yep.
be borne by the city
Yep.
solely. So I'd like to
Yep.
look at that whole conversation, and I look forward to that this Friday,
This
JBC
Friday,
is meeting,
yes.
and this is on our agenda
yes.
to have this discussion. So I look forward to that, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Director.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we are excited to hear the budget presentation from LPD.
Oh.
Good afternoon and welcome, AC Dale.
Good afternoon. How are you?
We're peachy. How are you?
Great. I also have our police budget manager, or business manager, Michelle Selvage, here if we have any specific dollar and cents type questions that she can help answer. And then Assistant Chief Stilley is here as well. So I'm going to dive right in, but I'm not going to dwell in some of the fine print to make sure you have time to ask questions. So we're presenting exactly what you're wanting to hear. To start with, we have our core values listed here. This is actually a description of our core values. The kind of one-word values themselves, we have an acronym LEADER. LEADER is for life, empowerment, accountability, dedication, education, and respect. And this all revolves around our collaboration with the community and making community members and organizations and partners part of all of our problem-solving processes as we continue to strive to keep our community safe and a great place to live. This is our organizational chart. You're probably fairly familiar with this. Our agency is divided into 3 divisions: management, operations, and support. Management is primarily things like accreditation and like internal investigations. Support is all of our professional staff units, and then operations is the uniform police teams and investigative units. So that's the fastest way to summarize that. This is a breakdown of our overall numbers of FTEs. You will see at the bottom our total number of FTEs, including all of our various budgets, and it increases just over 1 person. The reason for the odd decimal places because of a change we had to make in our ID unit to assist with some backlog, and which impacts clearance rates greatly. And we transitioned 1 employee from 32 hours per week to 40 hours per week, so that's the decimal part. And then the full FTE increase is actually a grant-funded position, adding a person to Operation Tipping Point, which is a professional position that's part of our gang unit. It's a partnership with Lincoln Public Schools, connecting with at-risk youth at an early age, often middle school, sometimes even elementary school. And over the course of that program, we've seen great success in preventing some of those youth from ever kind of continuing down the gang path. This is a list of where our funding is coming from. Obviously, the general fund is the biggest piece of the pie. And then we have our other funds such as the police garage and the radio shop that's generating funds that supports them, grants and aid, and then Lancaster County. And then this would be our expenditures. Personnel continue to be the greatest portion. I've been very, I don't know if surprised is the word, but it's become very obvious to me moving into this position and digging into our budget, really how little fluff there is in things like equipment and training and all those things. When it comes to the budget exercises, trying to find areas that we could cut, it becomes a challenge, as you know, because it is such a so much is invested into personnel as it needs to be. There's very little fluff beyond that. We are obviously investing a lot of time and finances into the safety of our community. That's the reason our agency exists. Part of that is increasing customer service. One example that we have listed here is a new software a solution that our communication center uses called Prepared Live, and it allows the callers who are calling in an emergency situation to share live video, photographs, etc., to the communication center, and they can turn around and forward that to the officer. It also has translation services where they can translate pretty much any language right while they're on the phone with the caller. And it has GPS services so we can locate people more quickly. One example, a real life example of how this could work is, let's say someone is the victim of domestic violence, but they can't safely make a phone call because the perpetrator is present. If they can make the call, they can have their screen blacked out so someone doesn't know they're on the call and be sharing live video with us. So we have video and audio of what's taking place at that moment so we can safely resolve a situation more quickly, where prior to this software, it's possible that that person wouldn't have even been able to contact us in the first place. So we're really excited about that. And that's just one of many examples. And then obviously we have a great focus on equitable and inclusive community. That's why we're doing things like reallocating resources. So we now have a homeless outreach coordinator and a mental health coordinator and the alternative response program, where some calls for service are being diverted to resources where police really aren't the solution for certain problems, and we can send the appropriate resource out on a call for service and get the person the long-term help that they need rather than contact with the police officer. This is a little bit redundant, but we ensure public safety, health, and quality of life. And everything, pretty much everything that we do is evidence-based. So as you are probably familiar with our crime analysis unit, who's done a lot of work for the mayor's office and city council preparing data, a lot of the research that they do drives what our response to different crimes and quality of life issues. We also encourage our employees to be very active in the community, whether it's community groups, youth activities, mentoring programs, board of directors, all those sorts of things. It helps establish and grow relationships with the community. It builds trust, and it helps develop our staff beyond measure. We have 6 different performance measures listed in this PowerPoint, and I'm going to jump right into the data itself. One of the measurements that we look at is violent crime, and I apologize, this is kind of hard to see on this monitor. This is a list of all the cities in the United States that are within 50,000 of our Lincoln's population, either give or take. And our goal is to have a violent crime rate 25% lower than all of those cities. And right now we were running actually 34% lower. The average violent crime rate for those cities is 582 crimes per 100,000 people. And we are currently sitting at 382. The next slide shows most capital cities in the United States. There's a few that don't report their crimes in this manner, but out of the ones that report, we're 19% lower for total Part 1 crimes, and for violent crimes specifically, we are 40% lower than those capital cities. I think something to be proud of as a city. Another measure that we use is our response time. So this is priority 1 and 2 calls. So basically any emergency type situation, we strive to have 80% of those calls, the response from the time the call is made till the police officer arrives, we want to be in within 10 minutes. And as you can see by the graph, we're reaching that goal. as we look at, facilities and where to have our team stations and substations, things like that, this is one of the main driving factors for that. Another measure that we use is our quality service audits, which are phone surveys that we do. This graph shows two things. One is a response by the citizens as to how safe they feel in our community. That's the black line, and that shows those that had the highest, basically the best answer possible, which is usually and always safe. Our goal is to stay above 75%, which we have. And then the blue line is basically how they feel the officer performed. And the blue line suggests that they answered that the officer performed outstanding or above. And that's been trending upward, thankfully. Also, for perspective, the people that are called on these surveys are people that are victims of crimes, have been involved in car accidents, or have received citations. So their encounter with the police was either because of a bad day or bad event, or because they received a citation, and they're still, in general, having pretty positive responses. So then we get into additional performance measures. Burglary offenses is our main measure for property crimes. As you can see with the blue lines, that is residential burglaries, and there's been a significant downward trend in those, which I'm very happy to see. And then commercial burglaries are generally staying fairly level. If we could find a solution to smoke shop burglaries, that would be a magic way to reduce the commercial ones even more, but we'll keep working on it. Injury accidents is the best way that we found to measure traffic safety. And there's things were trending upward, and then they dipped down and have kind of leveled off. One factor that I know people either love or hate roundabouts, but we've seen obvious evidence that roundabouts have reduced, maybe not the number of accidents, but the number of injury accidents for sure. Again, we keep returning through this throughout the PowerPoint and throughout a lot of our decision making, but we want everyone in our community to receive the same services, to be treated equitably, and to have the same quality of life. Part of how we do that is by recruiting and retaining the right people who are going to treat everyone with respect and who have the drive to be a part of programming and initiatives to grow public trust. I have a feeling this graph is going to catch your attention. This is our Part 1 clearance rates over the past 20 years or so. As you can see, this past year we had there had been a steady decline in clearance rates, and then we had a spike this past year. That is a combination of some really hard work done by some people, as well as prevention measures regarding catalytic converter thefts. And you are familiar with that because you were part of the solution. But larceny from auto cases drive our Part 1 statistics. It's the highest volume of Part 1 crimes that we have, and it's the lowest clearance rate. So by so drastically reducing the number of catalytic converter thefts, it has made an obvious impact in our clearance rates. Continuing on with our commitment to public safety, I already mentioned our addition of the grant-funded Operation Tipping Point position. Specifically that, we only had, for over 10 years, we've had one person in that program. Now we're doubling that. So the one person runs a caseload of anywhere between 70 and 150 kids and gets spread really thin. This new position is going to focus on the 10 highest risk kids. And LPS will help identify those kids, and it's really a collaborative effort to really dive in and commit to those kids so we can avoid problems down the road. It also involves working with their families, so it's kind of a full picture type approach. We're continuing to recruit police officers and make improvements with that. You'll see a slide in that here shortly that shows a great increase in our number of applicants. And we're still philosophically strong believers in our community-based policing and our generalist officer approach. We feel that having a police officer who is fully trained and competent with handling all facets of a call for service is providing a timely and thorough response to our citizens that they might not get in a lot of other communities. Some of the other efforts that we've made specifically, and we've done so without adding FTEs, but rather reallocating positions, is we've added the recruitment coordinator that can focus full-time on recruitment. We've also streamlined the hiring process and changed it from being a once every 6 month process to a monthly process. So anytime someone's ready to be a police officer, they can apply and within a month go through all the testing and interview process. And we're having good success getting people on board that way. This graph shows the blue lines are our number of applicants by year. So as you can see, we had dipped in gradually until 2020 was the low point, and we've been climbing out of that hole since. These numbers tend to run about 6 months behind because of how our academies are scheduled. So like our current academy class going on right now in 2024 would have been 2023 applicants, just for that reference point. But we're improving even more now for our July 18th starting academy. We're anticipating either 20 or 21 recruits in that class, and then we're going to follow that up with a lateral academy hopefully starting in August with some other officers who are already commissioned interested in joining our department. These stats are related to our Law Enforcement Communication Center. They handle nearly 1,200 calls per day and 110,000 emergency calls per year. So it's a very heavy workload. And like the commission side, they're also understaffed. They're currently 10 people understaffed, which is actually a higher percentage of their total FTEs than what we're short on officers. So we're taking a lot of technology-related strategies to ease the workload on them, but there still is some fair amount of mandated overtime, which can obviously wear people thin. As you know, we invest a lot of time and resources into our collaborations with other community partners, such as the REAL program, Centerpoint, et cetera. We have already started the alternative response program that I mentioned, and then the co-responder model is currently out for RFP. So we can have mental health clinicians actually responding on mental health calls for service, or at least some of them, to connect people with resources to find long-term solutions rather than police officers responding there on a daily basis or sometimes multiple times a day. We can get them plugged in with the resources to actually improve their living situation and solve the problem. We've also placed a major emphasis on the health and wellness of our own employees through different trainings we've brought in and things of that nature, training more people to be peer support officers or peer support members. This slide covers some of our mental health calls for service, and I say some because it's only the ones that are classified as mental health investigations or attempted suicides. So as you can see in the blue line, the number of mental health investigations that we're conducting is increasing, but even though those are increasing, the number of people that we're placing in emergency protective custody is decreasing, and that's because of those community partnerships where we're getting people connected with the resources they need, and we're finding alternatives to actually placing people in protective custody. Some other innovations that we're going through, we're updating our records management system. You've also been a part of that. That's a multi-year project that we're in the midst of. We're increasing the leadership training for our staff. We've brought in multiple trainings for all supervisors, both commissioned and professional, and have another one slated for this fall. We're continuing our efforts, as you know, with recruiting and retaining quality employees. We've greatly increased the number of hybrid vehicles in our fleet, and we even have a couple of full electric vehicles on order to try out as police cruisers to see how that works. But that remains to be seen, but the hybrid program has been very positive. And then, of course, we're always looking at ways to improve our facilities or other facets of our staffing. So I flew through that the best I could. What questions can I help answer?
So first, I'll open it up to my fellow counselors. So does anyone have any questions? Councilman Bowers.
I just had a couple of quick questions. So when it comes to student offenses from UNL, is that included in your data, or is UNL police data separated out from the city's data?
UNL police data would be separate.
Gotcha.
There are certain calls for service that they ask for our help with, but the vast majority of the calls that are reported to the university police, that data would be separate.
Awesome. Other question I have is, and I don't know if you have like a specific number on this, but like how many officers are like on community boards, and or is there like a percentage of officers, or can you just talk a little bit about that?
I don't know the percentage, but I think you'd be surprised how high it is that are on either boards or at least part of community groups or coaching, or we have over a dozen people involved in Teammates Mentoring Program. We have representation on like Voices of Hope Board, Friendship Home Board, most of the cultural centers boards, and I could go I could go on and on.
Just have 4 quick questions after that. I don't know, I might have missed it on here, but is there like a line item for training for officers?
Yes, there is. Correct?
Our training budget is 60,000.
16,000?
60,000.
60.
Okay. We talked a little bit about equipment. I'm wondering about, with, I'm going to mispronounce it, but like weapons and like hand optics, is that something that the department's looking at needing for our city?
Hand optics as in like laser sights?
Yeah.
It's been a discussion item that might be coming a year or two down the road. It's definitely a direction we'd like to go, but I think we respect that it's probably not in the cards today.
Gotcha. Other question that I had is, if we are budgeted for, how many officers are we budgeted for? Like 370?
371.
371, and then we have about 320.
Oh, I think we're at 337. Does that sound right? I think we're at 337.
So for like those 40 officers' salaries that have been kind of going into the coffers, have there been any plans for those dollars or?
Utilized as overtime to be able to staff the street.
Would you come forward since,
Sorry.
that's all right. I just want everyone to be able to hear what you have to say.
She's going to talk about overtime to make up for that staffing shortage. Another place that some of that has gone to is part-time workers, retired employees that we've hired back on a part-time basis to help meet some of the needs of the department in the interim until we can get fully staffed. But I'll let you expand on the overtime.
So if we don't hit our minimums on the street, we have minimum staffing requirements, we have to backfill it with overtime. So then we post and have overtime positions. And so that takes up some of the salaries that we're saving because we're paying more in overtime than we normally would above the overtime that we budget.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so they call in officers for overtime as opposed to just kind of like moving officers from different teams for the shift, or?
Well, we will move teams.
Okay.
So like Northeast teams, say second shift is 6 officers or 7 officers. If we have, and all the other teams have minimums too, as long as have more than 1 above, we will move them. If we only have 1 above, then across the city, then we will post for overtime because there can be that last minute call in sick and then we're short. So we leave it if the city's staffing, if you add all the teams together, is say 25 and we're at 26, then we'll post for overtime for that spot that's missing.
Gotcha.
But if we don't, then if we have 28, then we'll move from team to team.
Gotcha. Last question I have is, so, even though we're setting the budget for the next 2 years with union negotiations, is there still flexibility, or does that kind of tie hands, or how does that union negotiations work as we set the budget?
Budget puts in a COLA, what they think it's going to be into the budgets. So they guesstimate it, and then they would have to adjust it if it comes in higher than what they expected. Or something.
Have to make some
Right.
revisions, or
Right.
it have to be absorbed.
Right.
So there's still an opportunity for budget revisions if necessary.
That's a budget question.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Finance department rather than police department.
Finance, yes.
So that's our mid-year adjustment. So
That would be a finance would have to do
Yeah.
that.
And just so everyone knows who you are, Ms. Selvage, I'm sorry, I'm going to confess your name for you, but
That's fine.
yeah,
Michelle
Michelle.
Selvage, Police Business Manager.
thank you. I think Councilman Weber had a question, and then I will be just about at time.
Perfect. Yeah, just 2 quick questions. Kind of going off of the topic of talent retention, acquisition, and recruitment for some of those openings. What has LPD noticed has been working with recruiting new officers, and where is there maybe some room for improvement, I guess?
Sure. I would say some of the things that have been working are some of our online marketing efforts that we've made that have brought us officers from as far away as Chicago, or even we have one that just started last week from the New York Police Department. So we're reaching people from a long ways away that are looking for a place where they're more comfortable raising their family, and Lincoln is obviously a good place for that. So I would say the marketing efforts are good. The state legislation providing free tuition at certain schools for law enforcement and their dependents has been a big plus. And then some of our partnerships with SCC, where now they can get college credit for our police academy. And also, we have a program with SCC where they can get help preparing for our written test during the application process. And that's been a big success so far, especially as we try to attract a diverse group of people that has been attractive to people. And then as far as our challenges or room for improvement, I don't know that anything specific comes to mind. I think one hurdle that to be transparent that we face is still some negativity nationally towards the police because of isolated incidents. And obviously, because of the of social media and things like that, those stories get out really fast, and the appearance can be that that's the norm,
Yeah.
when in reality it always is. It isn't always. So that's a hurdle that we face, but I don't know the solution.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, that answered my other question in there about what we were doing to get younger members into the force, right, to make sure that they were able to have a long career serving Lincoln. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think I'm going to take my, because of time, I'm going to take my question offline, and we'll have a conversation about, it's a short question. It's an easy question.
Sounds good.
But thank you so much. This is really helpful, and thank you for coming forward, Michelle.
No problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Woo. All right. Parks. Police, then parks.
I was hiding behind the screen. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon, Director Stuckey Ross. And if your staff would like to actually see us or participate in some way, they're welcome to move away from
I'm going to
behind
ask them to
our
move
larger
so they can be
monitor.
seen. Yes.
We weren't intentionally trying to block views. We're just
And
trying
we didn't
to
sit
see.
behind it intentionally
Yeah.
either.
We're
So
just trying to see information in a way that's more magnified.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We are thrilled to be here today. I am very lucky to work with an amazing team of dedicated Parks and Rec professionals with years of service, and we also have new faces on our team. They have been a huge help in preparing the budget. I've asked our leadership team, on both sides, to be here with me today to help answer any questions. And I also want to thank Claire and Sherry for all your help as we prepared our budget. They've been incredible. So, our team is dedicated to the following mission. Lincoln Parks and Recreation is fundamental to youth development, active, healthy living for all, livable neighborhoods, environmental stewardship, special places and events, and economic development. And as you all know, this comes to life every day throughout the year, but summertime is when we really shine. Right now, you're going to find packed trails, booked golf courses, lines when the pools are opening, our forestry team out taking care of our community forest, our operations team keeping our parks mowed and preparing for special events. Everything is full. It's our favorite time of the year, and we're having a lot of fun. Here's a quick overview of our team, and this is in the budget book. It might be a little hard to read, but our sections, of course, are park operations, recreation, planning and facilities, and municipal golf. Walking through our funding sources, our 24-25 sources include general fund at about 74%, the Keno fund at 9%, golf fund at 15%, and Parks and Rec maintenance and repair fund at 2%. So for 24-25, we're looking at a $36 million budget and moving up just slightly in 25-26 to 37. Our expenditures are on the next page. As you'll see, nearly half of our expenditures are on our people, our incredible team doing incredible things every day. Other categories, materials and supplies, are pretty self-explanatory. Other services and charges, this includes utilities, printing, contractual work that we have, training. The debt service is related to Air Park Community Center and some bond payments that we're working on. Transfer out, that's funding going into our CIP. So part of our budget today includes some increases in user fees, and so I want to take a second to talk about user fees. User fees ensures that those that are using our facilities or our programs are paying for them rather than relying on non-users to subsidize their use of parks through general appropriations funding. We are putting the financial burden of the activity on those who use them. We have not raised fees in several budget cycles, so you'll see throughout our proposal a handful of increases in fees. Our team spent a significant time evaluating all the fees to ensure fairness and also ensure that we are within our community's market rates. I would add that even with our proposed increases, you'll find that our rates are very competitive and in most cases much less than you will find throughout Lincoln. Specifically here, we're talking about rentals and reservations, some of our programs and classes, out of school care, which is before and after school and summertime, some athletics programs, and we're also proposing a fee increase for the use of Pinewood Bowl. We have several opportunities for scholarships based on family income. This is programs we've had for many years. If people want to be part of our programs, our team is holding their hand and working with them to ensure that they have access to the programs that we provide. This next slide is about our FTEs. You'll see that we're going to end the 23-24 year with 284.62, and we are projecting at the end of 25-26 to be generally the same. There is a little bit of a change due to FTEs for programs that we no longer offer, and then in the second year we are bringing on some additional FTEs to balance that back to neutral for South Haymarket Park. So I'm going to dive into a few of the highlights here. Our budget before you invest in programs and services to build a more vibrant and equitable city. We have the following categories that we just want to call your attention to. We are making investments in capital projects to maintain the levels of service that our community expects and improve access and recreational opportunities across the community. A few things I want to highlight. We are continuing to enhance program opportunities at the new Air Park Community Center, Williams Branch Library. Great traffic out there. A lot of people testing our new programs and having the opportunity to experience us in a new way. 7 park playground renovations are included in this budget. I think I've spoken with most of you about this, but these parks are Peach, Nevin, Storer, Henry, Belmont, Filbert, and Herbert Park. So all 7 of those will be supported not only by city dollars, but also by Land and Water Conservation Fund dollars, and we are very excited to get all 7 rehabilitated in the next cycle. We're including 2 new neighborhood parks and 1 new community park. The 2 new neighborhood parks are Tranquility Park, which is near 44th and Cornhusker, North Hills Park, which is at 18th and Folkways, and then a new Northwest Community Park, which will be at 27th and Arbor Road. More information coming soon about that Northwest Community Park. We're also working on the widening of the Rock Island Trail between A Street and Busalis. It's one of the busiest segments of our trail. Looking forward to increasing the width so that we can accommodate the user traffic that we have. And also South Haymarket Park development funding is included. And as the mayor pointed out in her presentation on Monday, we are thrilled that casino funding has been included for Parks and Recreation to support South Haymarket Park in the second year. In the first year, we're going to be using that casino funding to do projects all over the community. So spreading the love around, and then in the second year, that's for South Haymarket. We're also including projects that are building infrastructure to support a strong and resilient Lincoln. This includes taking care of what we have, taking care of our existing park and trail infrastructure. For us, that includes sidewalks, it includes park roadways and parking lots, drinking fountains, lighting, roofs, pool and fountain pumps, which has been particularly important in the last couple of weeks. All of the pieces behind the scenes that help make a great experience for our community. We're continuing funding for the EAB Response and Recovery Program, which we'll talk about shortly, and providing funding for electric vehicles and alternate fuel fleet vehicles to reduce greenhouse gases and lower fuel costs. We're working to protect the health and safety of our families and our community. Continued investments, again, parks and trails support physical and mental well-being. We continue to see an increase in trail usage and facility usage. Playgrounds, pools, and recreation centers to provide welcoming facilities for all people to engage in active living and support a thriving community. And community forestry to proactively care for our urban public trees. Finally, we are growing an equitable and inclusive community with a high quality of life. Our recreation program and the school age programs they provide allow parents to work while their children learn and play. This summer we have 390 children participating every day in our summer day camp programs. We are appreciative of your encouragement for the incorporation of inclusive playground equipment. Of course, Mahoney Park will be our first launch into this new inclusive play policy and guideline that we have. We're going to continue the fun, though, and our next stop will be the Antelope Park Playground. F Street Community Center is a jewel in our system, providing daily meals for older adults and youth, distributing donated food and supplies thanks to community partners, and facilitating many services for neighborhood residents. We also are continuing our investment in the CLC program, supporting successful youth, thriving families, and strong neighborhoods. Taking a look at some of our performance measures, I'll run through these and happy to talk about them as well. You'll see that our first four are related to community forestry. Our performance measure number one is the removal of ash trees. The second is that 1-for-1 replacement, trees planted to replace ash trees. Performance number three is the treatment of ash trees as we look to extend the death curve and make sure not everything happens all at once. We are treating some ash trees to extend their life. And number four is the tree pruning cycle, which we're working to lower. Additional measurements we have include the population of Lincoln within a 10-minute walk of a park, the park acreage percentage against the total city acres, the trail miles sustained per square mile, and number 8, I'm not going to say my favorite, but I love this, the rounds of golf. So our performance measures are on here with our actuals from 22-23. We are nearing, of course, the end of the 23-24 year, so we will have our actuals for you very soon, and I'm happy to go over those with you so you can see the progress that we've made, and then including targets for the upcoming budget cycle. I did want to take a moment to talk a little bit about community forestry. We are really pleased that street tree investment is strong and that the administration is supportive of our efforts to not only get caught up, but get ahead on our street tree maintenance and care. We would point out that in 2020, our CIP total street and tree investment was at $90,000. The proposal before you today includes $350,000 for street tree maintenance, removal, and cleanup, $246,000 for street tree planting, which is a total of $596,000. And again, the EAB response and recovery funding, which continues to be there at $366,000. So this totals $960,000, which is a significant amount of money. Our team is ready and prepared, equipped to spend that money and make sure that we're making good on the commitment that Lincoln has to its trees. We put this graph in during the last budget cycle, but this is just a look at the distribution of time in our park operations division. What our team does with the resources that they have is nothing short of miraculous. There is a lot that goes into taking care of our parks. A few things I'd point out. There is a significant amount of time in janitorial and cleaning, equipment repair, taking care of flowers, taking care of facilities, ball fields. It's not just mowing, but it does include mowing. You'll see, unfortunately, vandalism repair does pull up into this chart. Snow removal, playground maintenance, event support. Our team is the jack of all trades, doing a lot of varied tasks throughout the year. My favorite, of course, is animal care, because we do have animals in our on our team. I'll say that at Pioneers Park Nature Center. Many of you know this, and you know our golf team, but Lincoln City Golf is managed as an enterprise fund. Operating expenses and capital improvements for golf are funded through revenues that are generated from our golfers and the green fees that they pay, the CIP surcharge that we have at our golf courses, golf cart rentals, memberships, learning programs like the photo that you see here on the screen from the Jim Ager golf course, and range balls. Lincoln City Golf operates 81 holes of golf, and if you haven't been to our golf courses lately, they look outstanding. We have an incredibly strong team, lots of experience, and bringing a lot of folks in as well to supplement that team. We have seen golf usage I'll use the word skyrocket. This says increase, so maybe I should say increase, by approximately 19% since 2020, which is very significant. If you saw in our performance measures, our goal was 180,000 golf rounds, and in 22-23 we were at 220,000 golf rounds, the most rounds played since 1999. The chart on the right is the distribution of our 5 courses, golf rounds played by course. Of course, it's not a contest, but we do think it's rather awesome that our courses are all pretty much around the same number. They are all equally played, equally loved, and of course, we're investing in them equally as well. So that is my high-level presentation about what's happening. I know I have some conversations scheduled with a couple of you to dive deeper. I'm happy to do that with any and all, but also happy to take questions here today.
Got about 10 minutes for questions, maybe 12 if we're efficient here. We'll start with you, Councilman Weber.
I promise not to take up all of the questions, but I do have a few, Director. So, and first, I just want to say thank you so much for the investment in the Air Park Community Center. Every time I'm out there, I hear nothing but great things about it. I want to talk a little bit about fees. So, you talked about fairness in determining these fees. What impact, if any, will the increase in fees have on potential marginalized demographics, and how did Parks and Rec come to the number that they did, taking that into account?
So several factors at play. We are looking at a pretty significant budget impact with the increase in minimum wage. I'll start with that one. In addition to the inflationary costs that we're seeing and all departments are seeing. I would say that our scholarship program is robust and it touches a lot of families. So our scholarship program is not changing. It will continue to be there to provide that safety net for families that want to participate but don't have the resources to do that. Our team took great care to ensure that the increases were not taking us out of the norm at all. Frankly, most of our fees we're way under where we should be. And as we want to continue to competitively pay our people, take care of our facilities, it necessitated us to take a look at those rates. So I'm going to say they are minor. I'm happy to give you an overview of what those fees are, where they were, and where they're going. But across the board, each facility, each program was taken individually. It wasn't a solid number across the board, because that's just not how our programs operate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love an overview, and I appreciate that accessibility was something that the department had focused on. You talked about market rates and how it compared with other services offered in the city of Lincoln. I'm just curious how the fee increase compared to maybe other municipalities.
Other Parks and Rec,
yeah.
Our peers.
Yep.
That's a great question. I'm not sure if I have that answer for you today, but I'd be happy to look into that. I think when we're looking at rates that are comparable, I would want to make sure that we're looking at communities that we would want to be comparable against. Lincoln is a unique place, and so when we were making our comparisons, we were staying as local as we could with peer organizations offering to the same clientele in the same environment. But I'm happy to look into that and get you more information.
I appreciate that. And then street tree maintenance, something that I think a lot of members of the council care about and have been vocal about. So the $600,000 investment, what level of impact will that have on the backlog that we've been experiencing for the last few years? And is there a strategic plan or a roadmap in place of how Parks and Rec will be moving forward with the street tree maintenance?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for that question. Our department is eager to put to use the funding that you have allocated for us to do the urban forest master planning.
Yep.
In partnership with our Community Forestry Advisory Board. We actually had a meeting with them yesterday, and we were talking about that. Many of you know about the changes that we've made in the structure at Forestry in the last month, and with Chris Myers in his new position at Forestry, he is working to fill, I like to say, fill our seat belts. We have a lot of empty seat belts, and we have the capacity to bring people on. He's done a great job in the last month to get us people. So how that funding is going to be used is for our people to have the resources they need to do the work, but it also will help us hire private contractors to help us get caught up. And I think that's what you're asking.
Yep.
I mean, there is a point where we have the capacity that we have the backlog that we have. With every storm, everything changes, right? So we can do a point in time number. This is how many trees are on the list, and the wind comes that night and that number changes. So we need to rely on our private partners, tree care industry, to help us, and this funding will help us to do that. So it will make an impact, no question. Continuing to support our program through the development of that urban forest master plan will give us that roadmap you're talking about, so that during future budget cycles we can tell you, this is the direction we're going, these are the resources we need to get there, and hopefully work in partnership to make that happen.
I appreciate that. And then my last question, most rounds of golf played since 1999.
Yes.
I'm curious, if anything, what does the department attribute that skyrocket increase to?
As many golf course professionals would say, COVID had a huge impact on numbers. Golf was one of the sports that was safe. It was outdoors. You could do it without feeling the risk of the COVID pandemic that many other recreation activities had. So we had a lot of new golfers come to City Golf. We continued to provide a solid product, a solid experience throughout the pandemic, and honestly, many of those people have continued to come. There's been changes in our community in the golf world. There are courses that have closed. There are courses that have new leadership and are just operating differently. So we've seen a lot of people come to us who have been longtime golfers in our community but maybe weren't playing the city courses. We are investing in a smart way with the revenue that we're bringing in. We're catching up on CIP projects, the new golf cart paths at Mahoney Park as an example. That was a project that's been on our list for a long time, and because of those strong numbers, we're able to put that money back in the courses. So a lot of things that are happening, but we have an incredible team. They're smart about their investments. They're smart about their marketing. For the price, we have a great product, and I think we'll continue to be in that position.
Great. Thank you, Director. Yeah, I agree. You have an incredible team. We're so lucky to have their talents and lucky to have your leadership. I think that's what makes Lincoln Parks and Rec truly stand out.
Thank you. I
Yep,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
All right. I'm going to jump in. I've got a couple of questions. Sure. I really appreciated hearing more details about the city forestry program. I think that's super important for so many reasons besides that trees are pretty. They provide us really necessary shade, and I think they make our communities more walkable, which make our communities more livable, and I think that's really important. Looking at the ash trees, and I know there's a 1-to-1 replacement policy on ash trees, and I think that there's a 1-to-1 replacement on street trees. Is that the same?
Yes, you are correct that is the goal. And really around 2010, when we were experiencing significant budget challenges here in the city, there were decisions made related to forestry that our forestry team is no longer planting trees. Trees that are planted along streets and in our parks are facilitated by our planning and facilities division and our volunteer programs through our partnerships with local businesses and organizations through Arbor Day and others. So we have a lot of ground to make up in terms of tree planting. Right now, the capacity that we have is to take care of our trees, manage the trees that we have, and not put new trees in. We are using the voucher program as an example, empowering homeowners to take care of the trees that are replacing the trees that we remove. But without question, there's improvement that we need to make. So it's written down. We want to be 1-to-1. You can see from the numbers we're not quite there yet, but as we continue to invest and engage the community in forestry and the needs that we have, we hope those numbers will rise.
Okay. And then offline, because it's probably a little bit too detailed for this, I'm curious about the treatment of ash trees and how effective that's been, what you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
For increasing their longevity. But let's talk a little bit about the scholarship program. I know in the conversation about fees, you said the scholarship program remains, and I'm curious if you put more money into the scholarship program to anticipate a greater need.
That is a great question. I'm going to turn to and ask Holly Lewis to come up and
Thank you.
directly answer your question with recreation.
Hi, Holly Lewis, Assistant Director for Recreation. For the scholarship parts, we maintain our eligibility for Title 20, so that is a source for some families. We have a small fund coming from Lincoln Cares, but for the most part, it's reduction in fees that we simply don't recover. So when a fee is advertised and the family qualifies for a reduced rate, we just collect the reduced rate and don't make up the missing revenue. So our revenue projections take that into account, our cost recovery.
All right, thank you so much. That's helpful. All right. And then as you're looking at fees across comparables, I'll be really curious to see like other comparable communities in Nebraska as well as sister cities.
Yeah,
outside.
absolutely. And I'm happy to share that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have a question for Parks and Rec? Well, then I'm going to end by saying I know the tree department has been really busy, and I want to thank you for all the work you did with this last storm. I have neighbors who were out with their chainsaws the morning after, and they could not handle everything. And then to see the city tree crews come through and just help so many neighborhoods, get the debris picked up, and it's been very, very gratifying. And I received many thanks, so I pass those on.
Yeah, our team appreciates all of the work that forestry puts in, and I will say our friends at LTU and Lincoln Police are and fire as well. We're all part of that response. So,
Yeah.
In my final act, I have in my pocket a really exciting thing called Around the Pool in 70 Days. This is a punch card. If you visit all 9 pools, counselors, you get a prize. So you have 60 days left to go to all of our pools. And as I end most of my presentations, I'll see you in the parks. Thank you so much.
All right, challenge accepted.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah. I can teach you.
Yeah, just sunbathe.
Yeah.
I swim like a rock.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much. We'll have just a small
I need to work on my tan too, right?
a small break while we welcome urban development. Every pool in 60 days. All right.
Thanks for the welcome.
Director Hind, a pleasure. You look like summer.
I feel like summer.
All right.
It's good. Okay. That's not my question slide. There we go. Actually, I am going to fix one quick thing. Slide right here. Let's start at the beginning. How about? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, welcome back.
Wonderful to be here. I will go through this, and I'm sure you have lots of questions for me at the end, and do my best to try and answer them. I'm not going to read our mission statement because I think you know what it is. Our mission, since I've been here for 9 months now, is very broad, and we touch a lot of different aspects, large and small, in our community. Our structure at Urban Development is livable neighborhoods, which is really housing and homelessness, a lot of grant funding, administration division, and economic opportunity, which is really 2 parts, which is redevelopment and parking. We have 22.5 FTE, and I do want to explain one thing on this slide because there's these subtle 0.15 differences that you'll see in 24, 25, 25, 26. And what that is one person left Urban Development who had 0.85 in general, and then 0.15 in parking. And then, so we've taken that away, but then we've added 1 above to general, so that's why we have 9.45. So in the end, we're 22.5, so it all comes out in the end, and it was just how folks were allocated. livable neighborhoods, it's really the investment in affordable housing development and preservation, and it builds an equitable and inclusive city. We're really proud of our work we do in livable neighborhoods, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So our funding sources, you'll see our funding sources from 24-25 and then 25-26. Parking, you'll see is a large portion of our sources at 16 million. CDBG at 2,538,000. I'm not going to go into all the particular numbers. Home funding, and then the general fund of 2 million. And you'll see there's some increases in there, and I'll talk about the increases in parking in just a minute. And then our expenditures. You can see the pie is sort of cut up in different ways, and so personal is really personnel services, but I guess it's personal to everybody that gets those services, right? Materials and supplies, when you think of a lot of these sections, materials and supplies, for example, that's really running our garages and some of the things that are purchased for those things. Other services and charges, this includes CDBG, home, lead, loans and grants, parking contracts that we have with our consultant, bank fees and central services, et cetera. Capital outlay improvements, you'll see that gets a reduction. That stays the same, and then the equipment actually gets reduced down the road, and almost all of that is within parking. And you can see our debt service. I tried to fix the typo on the 25-26. That should say 4 million, not 046,000. So just a correction that we'll make later. One example that I was going to give you at 2517 South 9th Street, this is a house that came to us through our grant and loan program. One thing that happens is we'll have an owner come to us looking for grants, and then our team will go there and look for other collateral things that need to be repaired, such as porches and things. So you can see the condition of this home. This also had lead mitigation as well, and then what it looks like today. So individually, we really are touching and being very specific on what we do with our improvements within our projects. Economic opportunities. Really, this is TIF, as you know. A lot of Mondays we're talking about this. And then parking resources to support a vibrant downtown environment and expand private investment throughout the city. I'm going to talk about that investment over the last fiscal year. I could have talked a lot about our TIF projects that we've been working on recently, but just a couple to mention. This is the Central at South Haymarket Park. This is poised to start between 9th and 10th on N Street. It's 172 100% affordable housing units. And then you can see the Center Terrace. This is a Hoppy project that we're going to be helping to support, again, with 125 affordable housing units. And then on the first floor, we have a clinic that will be supported with this project as well. Could have also mentioned the League of Municipalities, Instinct Pet Foods that just had its ribbon cutting, and so on. And the redevelopment of Sears, of course, which you know is happening right now. Parking upgrades are going to be significant in this next cycle. We're just actually about to kick this off. In fact, I was in Columbus, Ohio yesterday and got a tutorial on these upgrades. This will be the fastest in and out of parking garages that's on the market right now that we'll be doing. It's about a $2 million upgrade that we're doing in our garages starting later this summer. It's pretty amazing what we can do. The other thing is you open these boxes, they're very simple to change in and out. So as they do upgrades for their software every 3 weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, and you don't even know it's happening.
It's over the air.
Pardon me?
Keep going.
You keep going. I want to talk about our parking and our increases. In April, we did have an increase in our monthly garage parking of $5. We hadn't done an increase in that since 2017. And then moving forward in this budget, we are going to have an increase of meter parking, on-street meter parking, and our events parking. And the meter parking is going to be 25 cents an hour increase, and our events parking is going to be a 20% increase in our events parking. And we haven't had an increase in those for 12 years. To give you a sense of where we are sort of regionally, we did look around. We are in the low section of those increases. And there's a city in Iowa that just recently announced a doubling of their meter costs. So we're in good company, and we're still providing a very affordable parking experience in Lincoln. The other thing that's happening in parking is the upgrades to safety. I'm going to talk about a little bit about this in our impacts, but I'm sure you've all been to our central hub with all of our screens. Those screens have actually increased about 20%, and so we can see just about everything that happens in the parking garages, which is about access, safety, speed, and availability. Also, in improving our garages is a significant investment that we have around the city. And then elevator modernization. Elevators tend to be used a lot, and Tony and his team is working really hard to make sure that those are increased. Our administration in our group, we do a lot of work with not a lot of people. As you know, we have real estate, and which also includes right-of-way. As projects happened, those folks are working a lot to make sure that we answer those questions. GIS, federal planning backbone, financial reporting, our TIF administration, which isn't just the beginning of the projects to get them teed up and ready to go, but it's actually throughout construction and then the closeout of the projects. We're going to be working really hard to make sure our projects are completed as well. And then environmental assessment, and then BID. BID, what's interesting to point out here is we have just expanded the Telegraph District, and then going forward, we will be talking about South Haymarket as South Haymarket Park gets developed and other development happens as we move to the south. Tracking in GIS is something that we've been working really hard on as well. This is just the Clinton neighborhood. I won't get into too many of the details here, but folks can go in here, and this is since 1972, I think, or 73. So you can sort of see the numbers that the city has invested into our neighborhoods. And you can go in here, you can see on the green on the pie chart is loans that have been paid back. So as we loan monies, those funds come back eventually to the city. So you can see there's just a lot of data that's there that help us to drive information. And so now impacts. Taking from that slide, going back again to the beginning of time when we started tracking this, 8,394 homes we've supported. And if you look at the percentage of AMI in the households supported, 75% were 30% AMI, and the rest were between 30 and 80 or 25%. So we're really impacting a great deal of people. I'll go through this really quickly, and just if there's any questions, let me know. This is just in the last year. 56 direct deferred loans, 31% emergency repair loans, 24 first-time home buyer loans, 6 Habitat for Humanity houses, 1 NeighborWorks house, and 34 ash tree removals. 104 lead mitigation projects identified through the Lead Safe program, and we're going to be expanding that, and we're just getting an extension to make sure that we're meeting all of those needs. And then we've contracted to improve 170 units, upgrades for south of downtown, and we have 105 targeted in our next round. And we're just doing the interviews for those right now. We've completed 6 TIF agreements with 18 projects for future development in the pipeline. We've assisted in the potential addition of over 45 new jobs, and this is not on here, but we calculated it, with $66 million of private investment in the city of Lincoln. So really a lot of things happening with economic development. Parking operation, we've had significant increases in event revenue, starting with, of course, this thing called Volleyball Day, if you remember back. That started this trend of just increases in our event experience. And then one thing that I wanted to talk about with our smart cameras and things is the saves that we've had on our garages, on our roofs. Our technology now can send an alarm to our team if someone is coming to the edge of a garage for whatever reason, and they're aware of it. And we've had 12 saves of folks that are contemplating suicides in our garages. So I'm really proud of that team for how hard they're working on that. Our goals, we're going to continue to use TIF to eliminate blight and enhance economic opportunities and promote affordable housing and assist with over 400 new residential units. That may rise as more projects come before us. Assist planning in the development of TIF design standards. We're working on that right now. Implement downtown corridor project, again, that's in progress, and implement the music district project. Parking operations, I've talked about this a little bit, but new parking equipment, concrete restoration on Haymarket, Center Park, Garage Park, and University Square. and then elevator modernization at University Square and Carriage Park. And the comprehensive design parking study, we are going to be doing that and putting that RFP out, but we are wanting to combine that with our convention center activities that are happening at the county level. And then the South Haymarket on-street parking improvements will happen as we start to work with those owners and the park. So we're going to help to implement our Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan. Lead Safe Lincoln, again, we've applied for that grant again and an extension. Construct Permanent Supportive Housing Project, which is about to go to permit later on this summer. We'll be talking about that more this week. Continue to implement affordable housing program, the SODO rental rehabilitation program, and the heat pump program. That's moving along very nicely. And then contemplation of other programs around the city. And then the Hawley Historic Facade Improvement program is really exciting to take a neighborhood that has a historic significance and really try and help those owners improve that area. And then, of course, our administration will keep working really hard to administer all the funds that we have, digitize real estate operations and get more strategic in how we deal with real estate, and then track further our affordable housing goals. And then our brownfield and environmental reviews will continue on. We have more help and more assistance with that. So with that, I'll take any questions that you have. Thank you.
All right. I feel like we need to, thank you very much. This was a great presentation. I feel like we almost need to start with Councilman Shob because, well, no, you didn't do anything wrong. But there was a moment when Director Hein was speaking and you wanted to have a little bit more information. I think you had a what kind of question?
Discussion of modernization. That was a discussion with the over-the-air updates for the parking garages. And my question was over the air, or does someone have to come in and plug it in? That wasn't, I'm assuming I'll be done.
That's a great question. So John, who showed me this update, which blew my mind, you can be in line, scanning your card, getting your ticket, and an update can be happening in the background and you don't even know that it's happening. 3 months ago, our updates, everything had to shut down. We put a cone in the lane. We're doing an update. Sorry, you can't get in. So these new updates will be seamless every 3 weeks as they do it. They can add things, take things away, and work with the specifics. We have 56 lanes in our parking garages, and we're going to be looking to make sure that they're all updated in this next year. And so they're working. One company had a big sign that said, we're 63% faster, and they leaned over and said, we're faster than them. So we're getting really the best system that's on the market right now for our garages.
Cool.
Really great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So with that, do we have other questions? All right. Let's start with Councilman Weber, and I'll have a question as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. I want to talk about the 20% increase when it comes to event parking. What impact will that have on the average resident of Lincoln or consumer, and what can that individual expect in return for that increase, right? So what is the additional funding? What is the plan for the additional funding with that increase of 20%?
Yeah, so all of the parking increases, generally it's people,
Yep.
technology, deferred maintenance, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And in our team, we asked everybody to go back and look regionally, cities our size, but then with events, basketball, football, et cetera. And what impact, where are we in terms of cost regionally? We are significantly lower than other markets. And so this increase will just take us up. It's not going to take us, to the highest end, but it's going to take us into that sort of lowest range, but it's going to give better service at gates. It's going to, we have smart technology now where we can send you can sign up, we can send you your tickets much faster in and out, so people can get to events quicker and leave events quicker. And so those are the kinds of upgrades that we're having throughout the whole system.
So the hope is to make the event experience a lot more efficient for the consumer.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on the event parking. So 20% is, that's a round number, but people come in now and they pay $5, $10, $8, whatever. So what's the 20%? I mean, will change happen, or is this going to be another round number?
will change happen?
Like, will it be $5 and,
And 82 cents. or
40
something? I see
cents.
what you're saying.
you know?
Let me get back to you on
Okay.
what the specifics are in terms of, because it depends on the event.
Okay,
Very much event dependent on,
Okay.
you know, whether it's a basketball game or a football game, or if it's prepaid or paid at the gate. And so that'll change on the specifics.
okay, yeah, that'll be helpful. The other question I had for you had to do with the TIF program.
Mhm.
So you were describing the program in general, and you said it equated to $66 million in private investment. And I was wondering if you could tell us what the city investment is, or what I know it's not completely the city investment, but can we have that in context? So when we say these TIF projects created a $66 million private investment, can we have this in context with
I can
the
build
the
that
whole
for you.
picture, yeah.
And that whole picture, I sort of at the last minute said, wait a minute, we've done this many projects, and I thought, what's the private side? And so I grabbed that number out of the air, but I can put it into, so how much TIF funding we've given and what the private, we can build that for you and show you that spreadsheet for sure.
Yeah, it's so that we have
Yeah,
some,
no,
you know,
that-
and then like how many units, if it's housing, if it's something, you know, just sort of give us
Sure.
this
that-
much office space, this
Yeah.
many jobs, or whatever the context
And we're
is.
tracking that on each redevelopment project, you know, how many square feet it is. You know, the Sears project, if, as you remember that, you know, it was over 110,000 square feet. When developers have come to us with requests, or even a TIF project, we have been thoughtful by saying, prove it. So if someone is looking, you know, to get different support or things like that, and that's been helpful for us to kind of build the argument for projects, and things like jobs created, taxes paid, and those kinds of things. So I can build that for you, and we can work together and get that back over.
Thank you so much. Just two other small things. On the lead program, I know you're talking about continuing it in south of downtown and perhaps expanding it, and I was just curious, have you decided where you're going to expand it? Will it be citywide, or will you tackle another specific neighborhood?
The lead program is citywide.
Okay,
Yeah, and so that is families that have children under 6, and then a measured lead level that's high. We go in and do the wipes and all of that. So that, when I was talking about the south of downtown, that is TIF-funded improvements. So we have a TIF district. There's improvements that we're doing for rental rehab. That same sort of thinking or concept is going to be used for the Holly Historic Neighborhood. And so then it gets us thinking, well, what are some other areas of town that have a similar, so it might be owner-occupied housing, it might be a mixture of owner-occupied and tenant housing. So we want to look at how that project has been successful and then build on it. As you know, the second round, we're adding vouchers to be added to that, and some other ways that we're, very subtle ways, you know, is the building over 100 years old or not, and some of those other things. Is it multiple units in a building, which is, has had a little bit more impact because we're dealing with one owner and multiple units, so we can have a lot of impact. So if the building's, you know, 60 years old and it's got, you know, the same windows, it's a little bit silly to do 2 units in the building when all of them have the same problem. So we're looking to sort of capitalize on that. This idea of, you know, collateral benefits of how we can leverage our funding to do more with the same.
yeah. And then a recognition, this is a comment, a recognition for the folks in parking. And I know those cameras are amazing, and I'm so impressed with the folks who work in the command center at parking to be able to monitor 90-plus screens at the same time and sort of jump on situations. But to actually to help prevent suicides, I think it's just amazing. And thank you to that team who really does something that's a little bit beyond what we would have considered for parking, or a lot beyond what we would consider for parking personnel. And I hope that they're getting the post-event counseling that they need to feel okay about coming back to work after a hard day.
Yeah, they are, and we talk about that a lot when events happen, about their ability to get those services, and they are there, they're available. I just would say too, it's really a reflection of the use of technology and, you know, human smarts and connection to that technology. You know, the curb management and what happens at the curb and our garages and our roofs of our garages and all of those things. It is about, you know, obviously about fees and management, but it's also about safety. It's about pedestrian safety. If you think of, you know, a delivery truck parking, just delivering a quick package, they're blocking a pedestrian crossing, someone in a wheelchair. So cities across the country are really looking at that curb management and the use of technology in much different ways, even from 2 years ago. So the information sharing that's happening across cities. I was just in a session yesterday from Hoboken, New York to Miami. New York was in the room, and then, you know, Lincoln and other small cities with, you know, 100 meters. We're talking about this. So it's really the integration of technology that's really helping us push forward.
Well, thank you so very much. And if we don't have any other questions from counselors, I'm going to thank you, and we're going to take a break.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
All right.
And I'll get back to you on all of your questions that you had and make sure we build those, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hind. And with that, folks, we're going to take about a 15-minute break, so that just shifts our presentations forward about 8 minutes. Thank you.
That's what that experience brings to the table.
Welcome back from our break.
Yeah.
We're ready to continue with our budget presentations. We'll begin this part with the Department of Aging Partners.
Hello, Kay Wenzel with Aging Partners. I'm the Assistant Director, and Randy Jones, our Director, is not able to be here today. Our mission is to enhance the daily living, expand personal choices, and educate the community in an effort to ensure the independence and full life of the people that we serve. Our, as I said, Randy Jones is our Director. We have 5 primary departments or divisions at Aging Partners, the first being Personal and Family Services. This is our social work, care management, and caregiver wing of the agency. Community Activities and Services, or CAS, includes things like our senior centers, the central kitchen, transportation, handy home services, those types of things. Area-wide planning and nutrition coordinates the home delivered meal program and congregate meal services, and they also coordinate with the other counties that we serve in our service area. We have interlocal agreements and subawards with the counties of Butler, Fillmore, Polk, Saline, Seward, and York, and then we provide consultation to Saunders County as requested and needed. Medicaid waiver, I'll talk a little bit more about in a second, but it serves people who are nursing facility level of care and are on Medicaid. They choose to receive services in their own home rather than more costly facility-based services. And then the area that's near and dear to my heart, the administrative services, we are the backbone support for the department with things like contract management, monitoring of our subawards and contractors, the fiscal department, public information, that sort of thing. So for the upcoming year, we are budgeting just under $5 million. And then we have an increase in city fiscal year 25-26, mainly due to personnel-related costs. And again, we are flat for the 2 years in the biennium cycle of 43.2 FTEs. This year, we have 46.51 FTE, and we allocated staff based on a audit recommendation to reflect the work that they participate in on different grant projects. So this resulted in a 2.18 FTE reduction by moving pieces of those staff members to non-budgeted grant funds. As I mentioned before, the Medicaid waiver program, this is a contract we have with the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, Medicaid and long-term care. And it's aimed at people, again, Medicaid eligible, nursing facility level of care. So Medicaid would otherwise pay for them to reside in a nursing facility, but they are choosing to live at home or in assisted living and receive non-traditional Medicaid services. So things like chore service, respite, meals, that type of thing to keep them at home. It's less costly for tax dollars at the federal and state level, and it's generally preferred by the clients to live at home or their assisted living community. It's a growing program. We expect to add to that 33.5 FTE over the next couple of years to account and provide services to an increasing number of referrals to the program. It doesn't hit the city budget, but it does provide a big benefit of services to Lincoln residents. The Older Americans Act is the federal legislation that directs and funds the area agencies on aging, such as Aging Partners, and the core services that are outlined in the Act include elder rights, caregiver services, nutrition-based programming, health and wellness, and supportive services. Each AAA offers the services based on needs of their community and abilities, and we have a pretty robust programming options, especially compared to other AAAs in Nebraska. This chart is based on data from the State Data Center up at UNO, and it's predicting growth of older adults in different age segments. And I really want to highlight the top 3 color blocks. Those are people 75 and older. And you can see that their increase is really larger compared to the other groupings of age categories. People who are 75 and older tend to be more frail or more in need of services. And so this is the population that is more likely to reach out to aging partners or their caregivers and family members to reach out for assistance, services, resources, information, that sort of thing. But it is growing. We have 4 performance measures that we track and report on in addition to many other data sets, but we want to increase participation for clients who live alone and come into our centers. Isolation is a risk factor for mental health and physical health, and so by encouraging people who live alone and are at risk of isolation, getting them to come into the center, have some enjoyment and fellowship with other older adult friends, have a good meal, maybe some exercise, it can go a long way. So we are aiming to get to 60% of our clients being those who do live alone. Care management is one of our social work programs and provides individualized assessment and planning and service development to assist that client and their family member to stay at home in a safe and well planned out abilities. This measures clients who receive such services and are reporting improvement in their situations. The industry standard is 90%, and we're at 95% and have been in that 93 to 95% for several years. So we're really proud that it's making a difference, and the clients and their family members report that difference for them, or to us. Expanding our reach to residents who are 65 and over and who are in poverty. As listed in the Older Americans Act, older adults with lower incomes are a priority population to be served, and this stretch goal has us reaching to get 50% of residents who are at or below 150% of federal poverty level. This remains challenging because it's hard to get some people to receive a service or who want to participate, or they might be just doing fine on their own without our intervention or our services, and that's okay, but we do prioritize persons who are low income. We right now are at about 45%. And then activities of daily living are things like where you need assistance with bathing or dressing or getting in and out of bed, in and out of a chair, those types of daily things that you need to do to get on with your life. The industry standard is that 21% of an aging office would serve people who have 3 or more activity of daily living deficits, and we are reflecting a goal of 32%. So about a third of our clients are more frail. And again, the more frail you are, the more likely you need some assistance or services and may not have the financial means to pay for it yourself. So we have embarked on a age-friendly community action plan, enhancing the quality of life for our older population. People of all ages benefit from policies and programs that feature more walkable neighborhoods, transportation options, access to key services, opportunities with community events and activities, and affordable, accessible, adapted housing. So that's the age-friendly communities. We've had a community survey out there and got about 600 responses. So that data is being analyzed right now and diced and sliced and everything. The next phase, we have 8 community living or community listening sessions that will be taking place later this summer. And we expect some recommendations from the steering committee after the September 1st. So it's a good project and excited to be part of it. This is a drone photograph of our new location of Aging Partners at Victory Park. We've been there for about a year now and have settled in for the most part. I love it out there. Our clients love it out there. Staff is, I just think the amenity of parking is so handy for people. It's more efficient for us to be under one roof and still providing our neighborhood senior centers. So that has been a definite advantage, both financially and programming-wise, and just communication-wise. You know, we can speak to our staff much more readily. Our clients feel the same way about Victory Park. I know the mayor mentioned the large increase in clients coming to Victory Park, so we've got just some stats down there. More visitors, almost 300% increase. 100% increase, doubling the health and fitness programming, a 300% increase in the number of unduplicated persons coming to receive congregate meals at the site, increased in numbers of people who are using the van, the transportation to get to our office. So that's been, it just reinforces it was the right decision to get out there. Again, centralized service, improved access. We've got parking right at the front door for our caregivers and clients and visitors, as well as StarTran drops off right in front of our office. So very, very handy for people who don't have their own transportation. We're also a public asset. We have been having meetings and hosting sessions with OLLI, with AARP. We were a voting precinct for the first time this year, which was kind of fun. I was really encouraging of Randy to do that. I am a clerk at or judge at one of the polls, so it was really nice to see our office get involved in that. And then the Lancaster County Veteran Services co-officed there too, so it's good to be able to refer individuals back and forth easily when they're coming to the office. The next couple slides are just some pictures of our office in action. We've increased our educational programming that goes on, and earlier in May, we had hosted a gentleman from the Attorney General's office to provide education on what's called Crossing the Digital Divide, about fraud and banking and safety on the internet. More of our older adults are getting online and learning how to bank online and be more efficient that way. And so this was a really good 2-evening session about how to stay safe and keep your business private. And then again, our senior center dining room at Victory Park. And you can see a little bit of the stage where we've got some activities usually going on and entertainment and presentations. The fitness center is booming. There are some pieces of equipment that are in nonstop use. People are sitting down waiting for the person that's using it to get off so they can have their shot at getting it. So it's nice to see an increase in folks going there. And then, we appreciate the city's investment in Victory Park and the age-friendly community, trying to operate more efficiently and meet the demands of our growing older adult population. Happy to try to get any questions answered for you all.
Thank you very much, Assistant Director Wenzel. Do any of the counselors have questions? All right. We have no questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. LTU, you are up. Okay. Do you need a power cord? Oh. All right. Director Elliott, welcome.
Good afternoon, and I learned I'm a little bit behind the ball. I didn't bring a dog or park passes, so my gift to you is to not take the entire hour unless you have questions. So remember that. No.
Well, John, could you call help? I think that LTU is going to be done really soon.
We're going to get done. All right. Well, good afternoon. We are excited to be here and liven up your afternoon. Liz Elliott, Director of Lincoln Transportation Utilities. I do have my team here as well. When you get into the weeds and the questions, they can help me out and get those details. So, Lincoln Transportation is vital, as you all know, to the growth and success of this community. LTU divisions are essential to day-to-day life here in Lincoln, and we offer the community members an increased quality of life and great customer service 365 days a year. And everything that we do is built and centered around our mission to responsibly deliver and enhance and maintain our city infrastructure. We have our team throughout 15 divisions across the department serving our community's needs. And this brings us to just a little over 600 employees that have this mission in mind every day when they are serving you. And you'll see, and we'll talk in detail about it, that we are asking to increase FTEs this year. This is very different than kind of the LTU's past budgets where we haven't added a lot of FTEs. So this year we are looking at adding about 19 FTEs. So we'll talk about those as we move forward. Starting just first with our operating budgets, you'll see there's not a lot of change. Typically, the increase in our operating budgets are coming from personnel, which you've heard across the board, but also we continue to see those higher prices for supplies, materials, resources as well. And so we'll talk a little bit about the big ones, but generally we're seeing those still across the board. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to start generally, I have a few things just department-wide to cover, then we'll go into transit, transportation, and we'll wrap up with utilities. I've built in question points after each division, but we can also address them all at the end, however you prefer is how I've structured it. So a couple of the trends that we're seeing that result in that higher operating costs. Our fuel prices continue to increase. They came down a little bit, and now they're kind of inching back up. We've seen that increase to $2.96 for our StarTran diesel. That's pretty much what we're seeing across the department on diesel. The big one is CNG, and I just want to call this one out. This one has been just hovering right under $5. We have, and you'll recall from the current 2-year budget, that we are building our own CNG fueling station where we will be able to supply our own, cut out the middleman, and not have to travel clear up north to the single fueling station in Lincoln that has CNG. This, we anticipate, will bring our CNG cost down to $2 a gallon. This is taking a little longer than we had expected because we are waiting on a switchgear. It's been on back order for 2 years now. They tell us, I think, that it's still to be here in hand this month, fingers crossed. And so that is the assumption we have built into this 2 years, a $2 a gallon fuel prices. So that is built into our StarTran budget, which we'll talk about. And again, just our basic supply costs from our pipes, our chemicals, and then our asphalt and concrete continue. We hit our peak last year, and it looks like we're coming down a little bit, but over the last 4 years, the trajectory is still up on all of these costs. Knowing these trends, we have been strategic in how we have programmed and built our budget to make sure that we're able to continue to do the projects that we need to and be able to balance the rising costs, but finding more efficiency through our processes. One of the biggest things that our entire department in this budget is built around is improving the service and customer service of our services. Part of it is continuing our Lincoln on the Move, our annual reports, continuing our project page, but a couple other customer service elements that I'm going to highlight throughout this budget to better serve our community. The first one is adding a GIS technician to our team. This is a crucial step in ensuring that the accuracy and reliability of our GIS maps, which are heavily relied upon by internal teams, but also developers and engineer firms. Currently, the majority of the data within our system is hand marked. So we have our technicians that look at the paper, then mark it in the computer. They're pretty accurate, but some of these are based off of old data where we were just estimating the location. We have come far in our GPS technology where when the ground is open, we're actually GPSing it. However, it has yet to really make from the GPS into our GIS systems. And that is just because of the current capacity, and the GPS just exceeds what we currently are available to do that. So the lack of this kind of timely data integration does have significant impacts, because we have outdated, or instead of being within 2 inches, we're a foot off, which leads to unintentional hits, which lead to outages, whether it's a gas line or fiber or something like that, which impacts our customers. But it also adds costs to our developers, to our construction projects, by having to call in, halt things, fix those things that weren't expected. The other thing that we want to do are move on to bigger projects. My dream is to be able to have all of our project information located in GIS. So if we have that a development allows for a traffic signal when warranted, which could be 15 years down the road, some of us may not be here in 15 years, so who is going to remember that that agreement's out there and that has to be put in? So if we had it all in GIS, we could just go to that area, see what's all there, and then be able to comply. We can't get there because we're just busy doing the day-to-day to keep our heads above water. So this GIS position will allow us to make progress on those, as well as bigger projects. So going into transit, customer service, as you know, is paramount to our transit services. Riding the bus saves money for our community, especially as we see these gas prices rise. It also provides equity in transportation. Providing those resources helps connect individuals with new opportunities to essential services and to their family and friends. And we've had some struggles revenue-wise over the last year, which you've all heard me talk about in the mid-year biennium, where we've had a revenue cut from the state. So under state statute, the way they fund transit is their top priority are rural and small communities. So all of the funds go there, and then whatever they don't spend, the leftovers, Lincoln and Omaha get equally proportionally. Unfortunately, we know gas prices and personnel have gone up. It's also gone up in the rural and the small communities, which means they're spending more, which means we get less funds. And in fact, last year it was cut by almost $700,000. I expect that trend to continue as prices do continue to rise, but the funding doesn't. We don't know what that is. We don't know until all of the rules have submitted and finalized their budgets, and then NDOT says, surprise, here's your amount that you are getting. So we expect this to continue to go. Additionally, UNL, we have a contract with UNL. They are reducing their level of service for their students, and that reduced our contract revenue by just under $240,000. So you take about $1 million of revenue shortage, and then you add $1.2 million of fuel increase costs. That really has impacted the ability. So with the new CNG station, we do expect, and that assumption is built into the budget, that that will reduce $800,000. So we don't expect to see these ongoing gas trends, but that is something that we've been watching and keeping a careful eye on. So in order to provide the best service that we can to our passengers, our budget includes the ability to upgrade 75 bus stop improvements each year. That's a total of 150 bus stop improvements in this 2-year budget. That includes shelters, benches, concrete pads, ADA ramps, those types of things to really enhance the experience that our passengers are receiving. Additionally, we are replacing 16 older diesels that are far beyond their life cycle capacity. The exciting thing about this is by replacing these 16 diesel buses, these are the last diesel buses in our fixed fleet, so it will make it 100% alternative fuel for our fixed route fleet. Combining our fixed route and our vans, it'll bring it up to just a little over 82% alternative fuel on that. So we're really excited to be able to continue that trend with this budget. Additionally, the Federal Transit Administration requires that we that we allocate a minimum of 1% of our annual budget each year to safety and security features. So that is also built in here, where we are going to add some additional security cameras, in particular around our facility and the new CNG station. And then we'll continue to do some upgrades on our software to provide better real-time services, in particular to our paratransit rideshare programs there. Additionally, this budget does allow us to replace some outdated shop tools and some of those that no longer are efficiently working, those types of things, but it also allows us to replace garage doors and detection systems. So as the buses drive to the garage door, it should go up, being efficient, people can keep going, but yet energy efficient, it shuts right behind them. Those detection systems are not working very well, and so the doors just remain open, and the energy efficiency and everything else goes out the door with that. So the other part is replacing a service vehicle. These are ones by our service technicians that maintain bus stops, winter removal from bus stop areas, that type of thing as a replacement. This budget also allows us to continue our efforts moving forward on the multimodal transportation center. We continue to move forward on that. We're just wrapping up the final environmental. We just completed our noise study and hope to have all of that submitted to FTA yet this month. This will ultimately enhance our level of services exponentially by allowing all of the buses to come in at the same time. That will shave off 15 to 30 minutes on passengers' trips, making it much more convenient and safer for everyone. And so ultimately, the StarTran proposed budget enables us to continue to further improve safety and the overall transit experience, and yet being able to do and maintain the current level of service and not increase fares and not have to cut any service or routes in this proposed 2-year budget. And so with that, happy to answer any questions on the GIS or StarTran.
Are there any questions at this point?
Or you can keep mulling it over and we'll come to it at the end too. Okay.
We'll move ahead.
Moving ahead. Transportation. Our transportation team it works over 5 different areas to expand infrastructure and enhance the community's quality of life. We all like those shiny new streets, but those shiny new streets must be regularly maintained to ensure that they last as long as possible and that our money is wisely invested. So to protect our transportation assets, our operations and maintenance teams work daily to protect these investments and prolong that lifespan. To do this, we've increased our investment in crack sealing preventative maintenance. This seals all of the cracks, thereby preventing the water from seeping in, freezing, making the cracks bigger or potholes. And over the last 4 years, we have significantly, as the chart shows, significantly increased our crack sealing by about 510%. In addition to that, and in addition to the Lincoln on the Move investments as well, we can really see the impacts on our streets. And I think the biggest thing that you see, and you know that these preventative type efforts are working, are that the number of potholes are going down by over 15,000 fewer potholes since the inception of Lincoln on the Move. And this number will continue to go down as we continue to do this preventative maintenance, as well as continue to invest in our streets and the Lincoln on the Move program. We, of course, always continue to invest in what we know is going to come and is inevitable, is our winter season operations. So we continue to strategically invest to ensure that our community is safe traveling our public roads during the winter seasons. Our traffic team continues to be extremely crucial and provide vital infrastructure to ensure our community's safety. This budget does allow us to continue investing in alternative intersections such as the roundabouts, which provide increased safety, increased efficiency, and economic opportunities for the entire community. We will continue our school zone efforts to implement the school zone standards. We've completed 11 projects. We have 10 that are currently in progress, and we continuously work through our 83 public and private schools throughout the community. So this budget allows us to continue to chip away at those. Our traffic engineering, as part of our Vision Zero plan, is increasing public engagement and education to keep, especially the young people, safe. We're out into the schools, more of the community engagement efforts, and that we're starting to see, especially in our active transportation area, bikes and pedestrians, those efforts improving. One of the challenges our traffic team has experienced over the last couple years is in markings. We essentially have one striping company here in town. They are very busy between state projects and other community projects. We've had delays in ours where we've had to wait even a construction season before roads got permanently marked. So as we looked, and we've been reassessing this a couple years, what we are proposing in this is 6 temporary traffic workers. So they would just work during the marking season, the summers essentially, and that would allow us to stay on schedule, continue to do those, not fall behind, thus saving money that way, and ultimately be a net zero for the budget because that stuff's already programmed into projects and our O&M. And so this really, adding the 6 temporary has no real budget impact other than just being more efficient and allowing us to keep working when our contractors are unable to. That brings us into our transportation CIP. And this was changed several years ago to really just focus on 4 different components. We have our system preservation, our optimization, our growth, and our sidewalk plan. We continue those 4 buckets throughout this 2-year. You'll see on the right probably the biggest impact that you'll see in the transportation CIP is that reduction in year 2. We go from $49.9 million in year 1 CIP down to $37.5. That's twofold. The biggest impact is Lincoln on the Move falls off during that 2nd year. The other part is just operational costs continue to go up, and that ultimately, in turn, reduces our CIP. So our total sidewalks, we are in both years asking for a little over $1.5 million annually to continue our repair and our investments across the community. One of the interesting facts, the more we are out in the community and visible, people seeing us repair sidewalks, the more calls we get to repair sidewalks. So it's good that we know there's more out there, but the numbers of the backlog are still there. So we do continue that $1.5 million investment in both years. And then Lincoln on the Move, and it's always exciting to come back in and see where we are at on the Quarter-Cent Street investment. And right now it looks like the sales tax will go from our estimated $78 million into Lincoln Streets up to $86.5 million to Lincoln Streets by the end of 2025 when the program ends. So that's been a significant investment into our community. With the rising costs, that meant that we didn't have to cut any of our planned projects. We were able to continue to move forward. And as we kind of wind down the last 2 years of this, we'll continue to see where we're at with those funds. These projects, as you all know, are divided equally across the 4 quadrants of the community. So this is impacting every corner of our city, which has been exciting to see. And that wraps up transportation. Any questions?
There are a couple of questions, so let's start with Councilman Chubb.
Ms. Elliott, thank you for coming forward and helping me understand this a little better. When I'm in the community, everyone explains to me that their road is a third world country style road, yes, and it needs to be repaired yesterday. Mm-hmm. And then I get a chance to explain that the cost of repairing roads has gone up. Can you give me a ballpark number I can throw at them? 25%, 30%? The general
Look
cost?
at Thomas if he's got an estimated cost. I know that we have been seeing them, and a lot of the, as when Lincoln on the Move began and trying to prioritize where we go, there was the focus from the community and the advisory committee on transportation that really wanted to focus on the residential streets.
Right.
And a lot of what we're hearing is more arterials and wanting more of those roads that everyone's driving on. But the exact increase in cost,
I don't know if I can put my finger, that chart, the black chart, four quadrant, the concrete, the asphalt, those sort of things on there.
I don't think it's
Just those 4 items was about a 35% increase, so about a third more. So if it was costing us $100,000 to do something, now it's costing us $135,000 to do something.
which reduces the amount of stuff we can get done.
Yes.
Yeah, I do get to, thank you for helping me with that. That, we're just, yeah. The Randolph is the one I hear most often about the arterial, and there's a plan for that, so, yeah.
there
and
is.
That's a federally aided,
Yes, use someone else's money.
project. Some of Representative Flood's.
And actually, I just received an email that it's coming up on the next city council agenda are 2 amendments for that Randolph project. So that project is moving forward, but because it is a federally funded, it takes a little bit longer to get those completed. But there are going to be 2 amendments before you in the next couple weeks.
I'm sorry to belabor this just a little bit. So what I was asking for, and I want you to tell me if I got it right, when members of my community say, why aren't you doing more? We say we planned to, but our costs went up by about 30%. We're still trying to get as much done as we can.
Exactly. That's exactly trying to do as much as we can with the funds that we have. And if the costs ever go down, we'll be able to do more. But that's.
I'd also say a little bit, if you remember before Lincoln on the Move and the citizens had the study and they did the review, that by the citizens was we need 28 to 33 million annually. Lincoln on the Move is filling that significantly, but it's not filling it wholly. So there's still a gap, there's still a gap, there's still a gap.
And with that, so right now, Lincoln on the Move is bringing in roughly around 17 million
17,
annually.
getting close to 18 now. So.
And so having that 30 million plus gap, the 18 is, not.
It helps a lot. It has helped tremendously. We don't want to downplay that because it has.
Right. But it still leaves a $12
But
million
it still leaves a
dollar
12
gap.
million gap that compounds each year. So it definitely is making an impact. It is something that you can see across the community, and
You can see by just like the number of potholes that we were showing there. Because we've been able to resurface, we haven't had to do as many potholes, which means we can crack seal more because we're not doing potholes. We crack seal more, we do less potholes. So that's been a compounding effort. We're investing for a long term. We're investing for a long term here.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, you're welcome. I've got 2 questions. Do you have any questions? All right, I'm going to try and make them short because I want to leave room for utilities. So this is another sort of moving things around. So you talked about 6 temporary FTE for sort of to pick up in contracting on striping. And I am curious, I know that we're going to put in for a striping machine of our own. Will those 6 FTE that were temporary need to come on permanently because we need to hire our own stripers?
I think that's yet to be determined. So this is kind of this initial, I would say, toe in the water to decide how well does this work, how much can we get done on a permanent basis. So this is just that initial, how does it go, and can we maintain that? And then it is very possible in the next one that we say, okay, let's just make this full-time, staff it up and go that way. But right now, we're just going to see how this works and what progress we can make.
Yeah, I applaud you on being creative and putting an order in for our own striping machine, but recognizing that there's long-term ongoing operational costs to doing it all ourselves. But it probably, and crossing fingers, will pay for itself in savings of time and contracting costs. Another thing on sidewalks. So I know that the more are out there, the more people see sidewalks being repaired. Oh, I'd like mine repaired as well. And I appreciate that the money continues in the budget. But a neighbor of mine took it upon themselves to repair the sidewalk in front of their own house. And I was curious if you could explain a little bit about rebate, voucher, something?
Reimbursement?
Yep. we
That's
have a
it. That's the word,
reimbursement
reimbursement. When folks take it upon themselves, and then how is that shown in the budget?
So the
Okay.
reimbursement program comes out of the 1.57 million that we showed, so that's one piece of the sidewalk program, is setting aside funding for the reimbursement program. And so someone would call up, say that's what we're interested in, we would come out, mark the area, and say, we have, and I'm sorry, I can't quote it off the top of my head, so much per square foot that we'd reimburse. We've measured up, it's 50 square feet times whatever the number is. When you get this fixed, call us up, we will inspect, make sure you did do it, and then we can write you a check for that amount to offset the cost. Sometimes, just depends. Sometimes people get pretty good and they're pretty handy and they can put it in for about that reimbursement cost. And sometimes it has to subsidize a little bit because
$6 a square foot?
That'd be, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Six? Okay. I knew it was at least 5, but I couldn't remember if we have increased it, and
Okay.
apparently we have, so
Yeah.
6.
All right. I thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And without any more one more question?
Yeah, you made me.
Oh.
You inspired me. No, I'm glad you brought it up. And you might have already touched on this. So I know that we're pretty behind in sidewalk repairs across the city, right? Since what was like in the 90s when the city voters decided to switch it over to be the city's responsibility, which created some issues. How far behind are we? And I know that's a hard question to answer, but like, is the current funding allocated like enough to realistically eventually get back on track or not get back on track because, you know, it's a relatively new thing, but like, is the current funding allocated like realistically going to give us to a point where we're not just playing catch up? Do you know what I mean?
Right. No, absolutely. It is one where we're able to maintain those priority sidewalks. So the way we tend to generally prioritize, and it depends on the situations, but if there's a 2-inch or more or some other challenging factor in the area, depending on maybe where it's at, that type of thing, how many people walk that area. So we're able to essentially maintain that, but it would not, we do still have a backlog. That backlog is still several years long. So for repairs that are maybe a crack in the system, those types of things, we still have some catch up to do in that area.
And we can continue this conversation later. Because the question that I'm going to ask you later is like, how much money like would it take for how many years to get caught back up on track, right? Because, you know, like my mom's in a wheelchair, right? And like there's parts of the city where I'm not able to like get her over the sidewalk,
Right.
you know, and it's not making a pretty inclusive, equitable, accessible city when I'm not able to take my mom outside.
We can definitely get some numbers to you and provide more information on details on that to you.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Thank you. All righty, let's move on to utilities.
Utilities, all right. Utilities, again, providing essential services. Let's see, everything went off, sir. There we go. Essential services to everything, every day to our community, to provide essential infrastructure and services to support Lincoln's growth and economic, and ultimately our public health is impacted through our utilities division. We'll start with Lincoln Water System. Just kind of some fun facts on how big and complex this system really is. Our system does over almost 13 billion gallons of water used yearly in our community. That's on average about 121 gallons per person per day. That is a 37% decrease since the mid-'80s, thanks to new regulations, new plumbing fixtures, but ultimately our community really does embrace water conservation. And you'll start over this month and next month, hear our conservation campaign, just to be water wise and not setting it and forgetting it, that type of thing. Our highest daily rate was 4 years before I was born in 1974 at 97.5 million gallons a day. So We really have done very well over the last several decades in water conservation. As part of our system, we have 44 wells in or near the Platte River outside of Ashland. As part of that, we have 2 treatment plants. Both of these are currently underway of expansion for additional water supply under our Water 2.0 efforts. To get that water from the treatment plant is about 60 miles of our large pipelines. But once it gets here, it just becomes kind of a spider web of equipment. We have almost 1,400 miles of mains here in town, almost 30,000 valves, over 12,000 fire hydrants, nearly 92,000 meters, 13,000 backflow devices, and over 90,000 water accounts here in town. So it's just a huge amount of assets that mostly are not visible. A lot of them are underground, and we just don't see what it takes every day. But all of these assets have to be maintained, repaired, and operational 24/7, 365. Our customers expect that every single time they turn on that tap, clean water comes out, and it's abundant and infinite. And that's what we strive to do with this budget, is to continue that high level of service and expectations. And in this, and we'll talk more about this, but we are proposing to add 10 additional employees to our water because of the significant growth, not only of the city, but our system over the next couple years. Our number one priority and the biggest project you will see throughout our water budget is our Water 2.0 efforts. The biggest parts of these include new wells and expansion at our Ashland plant that we just talked about. These upgrades will add about $180 million of new assets in our Ashland area. And in order to manage this additional treatment that we're going to have to do, we are asking for an environmental lab specialist, 2 utility plant mechanics, and a utility electrical technician to be able to manage and maintain this once it's up and running. There's also we anticipate about $150,000 in additional operational cost each year, just because of the additional chemicals, the additional staffing, those types of efforts to keep this running. The second priority as we look through is just maintaining what already exists. According to the American Water Works Association, the average number of individuals in the U.S. working on inspection and maintenance and just our basic O&M of water distribution assets should be 3.5 people per 100 miles of mains. Here in Lincoln, we have 2 per 100 miles of lanes. We have not added staff at Lincoln Water in 2 decades. 2004 was the last addition to our water staff team. And as you know, our city has grown immensely in those 2 decades. So this budget does add 1 water construction crew to help us reduce that gap. That gets us to about 2.8 FTEs per 100 miles of main. So we're still below that 3.5. But this is something that will be a significant impact and will allow us to continue to maintain. One of the biggest things between our valves and fire hydrants is those are needed for LFR to maintain their ISO certification. So it's not just a Lincoln Water impact. This is a city safety and public safety issue as well, to make sure that we are inspecting those each year. The other part is some additional federal requirements on lead in our system. The Lincoln Water system does not have any lead components. However, there are privately owned service lines that serve individual homes or businesses. As part of this new federal requirement, the city or any water system is now responsible to get that lead out, even though it's privately owned. So we have implemented a program. It's a 10-year program as part of the Lead Safe Lincoln initiative that has officially kicked off. But there's a lot of additional work and documenting requirements. So we are proposing to add 1 additional water service technician that will really be able to be responsible for performing taps, inspections, the documentation. This position is funded through the state revolving fund loan that's going to fund this program for the 10 years. This is not part of the rate revenues. It comes just from the SRF loan. Sorry, I see a question, but I'll wait. The other part is just to maintain our regular replacement. The last couple years, as part of our strategic plan, was to replace 7 miles of mains annually. In continuing our strategic forward thinking, we are increasing that from 7 miles to 8 miles this year. That will allow us to continue timely replacements throughout the community. As part of this, we do have to design all of those main replacements. And so we are proposing to add 1 senior design engineer. This would be funded by water. It actually would be in the transportation project delivery team where they would work and be focused on water main design projects. Another new item in this budget is a temporary southern location for a satellite location for field staff and storage and supplies in that area. Right now, if there is a failure in the south part of Lincoln, they have to travel clear north to our office there to get supplies, to get tools, those sorts of things, and then travel clear back south. That is time where customers are impacted, our assets are impacted, and so having a closer satellite facility to respond from will allow us to get to those failure calls much quicker, much faster, saving both customers and the city vital, valuable, and assets. And so this is just temporary. Our ultimate goal is to have a permanent Southern Municipal Services Center where not only water but other municipal services will be there. But this is one that would get us until that permanent location is up and running in the future. We're also proposing to add an additional utility engineer technician. Again, going back to that focus on customer service. One of the things that we are challenged with is the number. It's a good challenge, right? We have a lot of development in town, which means we have a lot of plans that we have to review. Right now, our water team has 1 person that is reviewing those. So what we are proposing is to double that staff, to add 1 more. So we had 2 staff reviewing it and substantially reducing the amount of turnaround time to review development plans and ultimately improving that customer service to developers and anyone building onto their home or business. And that brings us to our capital improvement for the Lincoln Water System. Again, the biggest part of this is going to be Water 2.0. But in the 6-year period, it is a total of $563 million investment. Most of this, about $200 million of that, is the American Rescue Plan Act funds dedicated to Water 2.0. It also includes our Lead Safe Lincoln State Revolving Fund loan of $32.6 million, as well as our 8-mile main replacement into this. As we go into that, our Water 2.0 is about $215 million total investment into the upgrades at Ashland, the 2 horizontal collector wells, the new transmission main along 98th, which is where our second water source will connect, and then land acquisition for that new well field and plant are all included in this CIP. We do have $47.2 million in non-Water 2.0 CIP projects in the first year and another $45.3 in the second year. This is the lead service lines. This is the 8-mile replacement. This also includes 3 miles of new water main extensions annually for a total of 6 in the 2-year biennium. So that is also included in this CIP proposal. All of the operating and CIP goes into our rate settings. A couple other things as we're looking at rates that we build into this is making sure that we maintain a debt service coverage at or exceeding 2.0, as well as maintaining 180 days cash on hand. One of the big things about the cash on hand, especially with ARPA, this is a reimbursement program where we have to cash out the door before we get reimbursed. So it's really important, even more so now than normal, that we have that cash on hand availability. So as we do that, we are proposing a 5% rate increase that is fairly consistent with what we've done for quite some time over the years. With this 5% rate increase, it still maintains very affordable rates. You'll be able to see Lincoln is in, this one's backwards. Lincoln is the blue, And I apologize, this is confusing because it's green and wastewater. So it's blue on here, orange is Omaha, and green is the like-sized, similar size as Lincoln across the nation. So you can see the first year is the far left blue, the second year moves over 2 spots, but we were still on the very far end of affordability for our rates, even with this increase. And that brings us to wastewater. Besides providing drinking water, our utilities then deals with that water once it goes down the drain. And we are investing $19.4 million in our wastewater infrastructure in year 1 and $23.4 million in year 2. And we'll dive deep into this. But our Lincoln has 2 water resource recovery facilities, and they don't just treat wastewater. We take everything and recover and produce energy, renewable natural gas. We provide valuable nutrient-rich biosolids for our ag partners, and we also recover and remove nitrogen and phosphorus from the water in all of these. And ultimately, our wastewater, although those are great benefits, it's ultimately about public health. Without wastewater, we would have serious public health issues here in any community without that. We cannot operate the facility, though, without our wastewater plant operators. Our plant operators are required to be certified under the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, and those requirements have changed slightly in the last couple of years. You used to be able to just jump to the one you needed. I think it's 4. Now you have to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and it takes several years for most people to really understand and be able to get through all of that certification. Right now, we do have our 2 plants, and we are running significant overtime operating those plants based on the number of staff we have. That's compounded by some vacancies that we have. So by adding 2 assistant wastewater plant operators, that will alleviate some overtime. It will also allow us for succession planning, given that the new certification process takes longer. We're able to get those individuals in, up to speed, and have some time to pass and get to that position. So this really will allow us to reduce overtime costs, but also make sure that we are functioning well into the future. We continue to do our traditional CIP program. This is all part of our master plans. It's been something that we've talked about and laid out for years. We're continuing on with that. We have $33.8 million in capital improvements in the first year and $38.9 in the second year. Those CIP projects include our continuing Teresa Strait capacity expansion, which is at $54 million. This adds 2 aeration basins and 2 clarifiers. That will allow us to increase our capacity by 14 million gallons a day to just handle Lincoln's growth well into the future. It also will allow us to fully comply with state and federal regulations. Again, with rate settings, those operating and CIPs are built into our rates, along with the debt service and the 180 days cash on hand. We are proposing, as we have the last several years, a 5% increase. This 5% increase will result in an average of $1.68 per household increase in the first year, and then an additional $1.76 per household in the second year. This keeps us almost at the most affordable in the nation. On this one, Lincoln are the green bars on the far left. The first one on the left is the first year. The one just to the right is the second year. The red is the like-sized average city in the U.S., and then Omaha is the yellow on the far right. So again, because of our strategic planning and efficiencies, we're able to keep this very affordable for our community. And last, well, I won't say that. So solid waste is our other utility that has to constantly keep things moving, and the unwanted materials that come there continue to grow each year. We receive over 300,000 tons of waste a year at our landfills. That I think we said was equivalent to 200,000 cars a year. Our gatehouse staff see 400 vehicles a day. So on average, it's about a vehicle every 90 seconds. We have our uncontaminated construction and demolition waste that can go to the North 48th Street. We call that the C and D. And then everything else, this picture, this is the Bluff Road there. The fees are a little different, and our proposal this year is slightly different than what we have seen in the past, but it averages out to a 5% increase. Our recyclable collections continue to grow and become even stronger, recycling over 7,000 tons at our recyclable locations. The biggest thing you're going to see in the solid waste budget is our liner program. Our total 6-year CIP is 44.2. In this biennium, the liner project is about a $10 million project, and that's the liner and leachate system for our next cell. So that continues to move forward. Again, with our rate settings taken in, our operating, our capital, our debt service, and our cash on hand, what we are looking at is, in the past, we typically increase our Bluff Road fees and the occupational tax. In this one, we're looking at the C&D fees and what those have been. Those haven't been raised in 5 years, and so trying to bring those more in line with what we're seeing in other places. The rates, this is the first time we've shown, this is a little busy, but we wanted to make sure we're showing apples to apples. So we're showing on the far left, you have transfer station costs. In the middle, you have refuse landfill fees. Then you have cars, compost, yard waste, and then construction and demolition. It's a little more difficult to compare solid waste across the nation. So these are just in Nebraska, and comparatively. The Lincoln solid waste are the blue lines. And so like our water and wastewater, we are very much in the lower end. We do get up to about the middle, but we are far from the high end of affordability or costs for these fees. So what we are proposing for the gatehouse tipping fee, which is the Bluff Road landfill plus occupational tax, in the first year, we're proposing to go from $50.17 up to $50.97, so that 80 cents. The second year, it would be a 5%, our normal 5% increase, making that $53.37. The other ones, which you haven't seen in a couple years, that 5 years, are the transfer station fees, the yard waste, and the construction and demolition. Those are going up the first year, but no increase on the second year. And then finally, but definitely not least, is our watershed team. The budget for the watershed team is staying pretty level and steady on this. This is a beautiful picture of Antelope Creek. We continue, this is just a great example of a project that provides flood resiliency. It took hundreds of structures out of the floodplain, and we're working on a similar goal with our Dead Man's Run efforts. And that's one of the biggest projects that Watershed continues to work on. But this budget ultimately will allow them to continue what they do every day, keeping the Lincoln roads clean by street sweeping and litter control, maintaining, cleaning, and repairing the public drainage systems, inspecting commercial and industrial facilities to make sure they comply with the ordinances, making sure our MS4 permits and other ones are complying with federal and state requirements. They'll continue to monitor local water quality and illicit discharges and stream stabilizations. So Watersheds is, I don't want to say business as usual, but they are continuing their focus on Dead Man's Run and just maintaining the city's system. So with that, questions on all things utilities?
All right. Are there any questions, councilors? Well, I want to thank you for being uber efficient. I also want to recognize that that work on Dead Man's Run is really important, and certainly we all get letters regarding progress on that, and so glad to know it's continuing. The question you noticed as it came across my face had to do with the state revenue SRF loan?
Yes, the state revolving fund loan.
Revolving fund, thank you. And so you said that they're going to fund a position, an FTE, for 10 years?
The funds that we borrow from that, which we are able to get some forgiveness on that loan as well. So under the SRF, it is part of the lead initiatives from the federal initiatives on that, where if it's within certain census tracts, it will be reimbursable. But part of what the costs that are covered are operation costs. And so the money that we are borrowing from the SRF will be able to use for our staff that will have to lead that program. And so that's the funding that we will be in part using for that. It'll also pay for the entire program. But
And when you use those dollars for that program for 10 years, about how much is reimbursable or forgivable?
62% or 52? That's what it is. 62 or about 50.
Okay.
So based on the census tracts, because it's only reimbursable if it's in the certain census tracts, and knowing where our lead service lines are, it'll be about 50% reimbursed from what we borrow.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay.
Forgiven. Thank
Forgiven,
you.
yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
wrong word.
Yes, the loan is
Forgiven.
forgiven, okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, I really appreciate that clarification, and I'm sure there'll be a question sometime in the next couple of weeks, so
Absolutely.
we'll come to you individually.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, keep checking your email. We'll be in touch. Thank you very much. Well, welcome to the Health Department. You're right on time. We're running early, and so I appreciate your flexibility.
We heard Liz. We figured she'd be early.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Thank you very much for your presence this afternoon, Director Lopez.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to just go ahead. I might need a little, I need to find the up and down key.
Take your time.
Oh, here. I knew as soon as you got up, I'd find this or this. Okay, so I'm going to just start out a little bit about our mission, and I think you know it, but it's to protect and promote the public's health. So that really talks about monitoring the community health status and assuring clean air, safe food, water, and homes. Another important area we look at is access to health services and supporting vulnerable populations and preventing infectious disease. In this, I thought I put in an organizational chart so you can see how our leadership is. We have our sections listed and the services provided under each of those sections. We do have a vacancy in animal control right now due to a retirement, and we're recruiting for that position. Our funding sources are all listed here for the next fiscal year that we can start with in the following year in the biennium. And our revenue from user fees increased 9% over 2023. So just so you know that. And it's really largely due to an increase in dental Medicaid fees. And I'll talk a little bit more about that because you did approve a full-time position. We're hygienists, so we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But just so you know, our user fees, when you look at that number, that includes our animal control license fees, environmental health permitting and license fees, and fees for clinical services in dental and community health services, and charges or reimbursement for service. And we do have interest that we accrue on our fund balance also. And you can look at our total expenditures on the next slide. And so we're looking at all the contractual services under other services when you look at that. So our hazardous waste disposal, building operating costs, or rent, utilities, those kinds of things. Data processing, you'll see that on there. So you have an idea of what we're asking for the next 2 years. I should say we have no increase. We're not asking for any increases in positions or other areas in this budget. So just to be clear about that. Then looking at the health fund, you can see again how all of these are put together and what they amount to and the amounts that we get in. I want to point out the intergovernmental funding is the funding we receive from the county. So that's the transfer from them. And charges for services includes our user fees. And the animal control, you know, health has 3 separate funds. The health fund, animal control, and then air. So we present them separately on here. So you can see what we bring in animal control, try to stay close and use as much money as we can from license fees. That makes up a large portion of the budget for that area. And I'll talk a little bit more about the officer we added and what happened with that moving forward. Our Title V Clean Air Fund, just looking at that, you know, we have to self-fund this. We're not allowed to use additional funds, but just to give you an idea of where that is, and we have a slight increase in what we've received in some of the other areas, but we do have some pending penalty cases coming up here soon. But we want to have a cushion in there so we can carry on the program to meet the federal requirements for the funding and the ability to provide that, because it's a great service in our community. Then looking at our personnel, you'll see we have no increases in personnel. There's a slight increase because some people were moved into the health fund that had been out. So basically it's that 3 positions that the council approved last year for those disease investigation specialists. So that's the increase that you're seeing there. Then, we really work to protect the health and safety of our families and the community from communicable disease. So you look at immunizations, vaccinations for individuals without a primary care home, the uninsured and uninsured and underinsured. We've developed a local immunization coalition, so they're comprised of healthcare providers and community members so that we can continuously improve reaching out to children and adults in the community so that we really get them moving. You'll see our Healthy People benchmark in 2022 was lower, and especially during COVID, you can see the impact that had on people. But we've been able in the last year to increase to the 51.75%. And we're really happy about that. We're striving to get further. The next slide, I just want to point out to you that we've been able to decrease our gonorrhea and chlamydia rates and looking at that. But the bottom yellow gold line is syphilis, and syphilis is on the rise in our community. And I think we talked to the council about that last year when we were asking for these positions. And that's a concern for us. So we're really focusing on reaching out. We've done a lot of work with the physicians in the community for treatment. And so we have a strong relationship going and getting people referred in for treatment correctly and as soon as possible. And that's really exciting for us, but we've got a long way to go. And then we look at monitoring and preventing contact tracing that you can see there. There are more than 150 reportable diseases in our state, so we have to follow up on all of those and do case investigations. And last year we launched the non-COVID respiratory panel dashboard, and we have a lot of people that go to that in the community. And our disease investigations remain very high and responded to. You'll see some of that in our performance measure. And we are looking, working closely with the healthcare community. In epidemiology, I just want to remind the council members that we, for the 5th consecutive iteration of Place Matters, our team partners with CHE to develop those reports and place the GIS, and we use those in a lot of what we do. We evaluate outcomes and impact and do a lot of data analysis and provide that not only for our department, but for several agencies in the community that are trying to make changes. So we keep very busy there. Then the next slide is talking about our community health assessment. Oops. And you can see, we're really working on inclusivity, equity, and data, using data-informed, establishing priorities, and it's collaborative. We are now in the process, on September 5th, we will be doing a community health summit where we'll be inviting community members and organizations in to talk about what our next priorities should be through our community health improvement plan. And we partner with both Bryan and CHI St. Elizabeth's on developing that. One of the major things we do are community conversations. So we go out to all the cultural centers. We work with the homeless population, person with disabilities, the LGBTQIA population, to get information from them about what they see the needs are firsthand in the community. And that informs everything we share back. Our team just completed 8 modules that you'll be getting a link to that are about 10 minutes that talk about the assessment and the findings. We want to grow through our home visitation program. Our one home visitation program for more vulnerable families completed over 4,000 visits in the last year. And you can see on your slide what percent of mothers have screened positive for depression. And 95% of the women in the program start out breastfeeding, and at 6 months it drops down. So we have one of the highest breastfeeding initiation rates in the community. And we partner with MilkWorks and other places to do that. In our, I think that's been a really good thing. And our WIC program also has an office out on North 27th next to Super Saver, and that's highly utilized too. The next program I want to talk to you about is Family Connects. You may realize that's the program that the council approved 2 years ago. After we completed all the process and getting staffing on, we're still trying to hire a couple more staff. But to date, you can see, actually to date, as of last Friday, it was 423 families that we've served. But we have a strong partnership. We're getting data from the hospitals, and we have a good relationship. Our nurses go into the hospital and meet the parents before they go home. So we're getting more and more referrals that way. And Carrie's established a community advisory board that's made up of physicians and community members to help guide us in the work that we're doing so that we can make the program a great success with families. And then you can see for information and referral, we have staff. You can see the difference between the COVID years and when things changed with the vulnerable residents. Our nurses do a lot of work with families, connecting them to healthcare, getting them into services, and following up. So that's been a major effort, and you can see the numbers there. Interpretation services, I want to point this out to you. Our need has quadrupled since 2022. We have 4 full-time staff. They speak, we have 2 full-time Spanish-speaking staff, Pashto and Karen. Then we have contracts with other services. We evaluate those contracts to see, because once it gets to a cost level that is more cost-effective to hire people full-time and bring them on. And we use indirect funds for that support of those, so you won't see those positions in there. But we're already over halfway into our expenditures for this budget year, so we're monitoring that really closely. We only have $200,000 budgeted for outside services, so we're continuing to monitor that. And then you look in dental, I think that tells its story itself, that we have primarily a large population of Medicaid recipients we see, and then you can see how many need language support, which is a really high number. a vast majority of them do. And to provide dental services, it's really important that you have an interpreter right there. With families, you can't really do that on the phone and help them see through. And we provide the services through contract dental support, and we have a robust number of contractors. Then the next slide, we're talking about our service demands and where we're at, and the total patient visits that are multilingual. Last budget cycle, as I mentioned, you approved a dental health position, a dental assistant, and our wait times have been reduced by 4 to 6 weeks with hiring this person, and it's also enabled us to collect more fees and bring more revenue in to support that position. So thank you for that. Then if we talk about animal control, you can see the budget is laid out right there. And when I just looked at some of our numbers, and I reported we had 4,000 calls last month, to give you an idea, and at the month before, and then we had 4,500 calls last month that were for dispatch and service. So we're moving out into the community, and the additional officer that was allocated in the budget last year was a great assistant. You can see too, our animal neglect cases started to rise again a little bit last time, and we've implemented a new measure for tracking bites. Before, it used to have to be that somebody called in or we went out and we found the bites. Now we've developed a private secure data exchange with the hospitals so that they're notifying us when we have bites. So you see a large jump in bites. So that's going to help us as we move forward to provide a better service in the community. And follow up on those, that's really a strong concern we have. In our water quality, you can see where we're at with our inspections and trying to provide consultative services. So looking at the storm sewers, and I can tell you we get a lot of calls and questions to come out and work on that, so our team does a great job. Food safety, our permits, those food handler permits are for 2 years, and they vary. You can see it's pretty on trend, about 15,000. We're still recovering from COVID with more people being handled. So those are fee programs. Then the health and safety of our families with the waste management. We've already been to the council and shared that we're building a new garage, and that we're also building a reuse center, and that's all moving forward at this time. The reuse center, I believe, will be done yet this year. They're breaking ground on that, and then the garage. So, but we have consistently had a large quantity, you can see, through the Has-to-Go distribution. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing is air quality, and I just want to mention with air quality, you can see our number is down, and we were really impacted by the fires in Flint in Canada, and we continue to be impacted by those fires coming into the community. So I'm really grateful that we have our own method for monitoring and can alert the public. We get calls about it. People are paying attention to that, about what they need. The next slide is about preparation for extreme heat events. By the end of this month, we'll have a draft heat plan for the city and county response, and that's from the position the council approved in the last budget. So we've been meeting with city and county agencies and helping them look at developing their own plans, then looking at our plan and for the entire city and county, and what measures we're going to have to take with the public. So the next part of some of that is going out and having these community conversations and getting more public input. So we'll keep you informed, but you'll be seeing the plan, the draft plan soon. And then I just want to mention our lead poisoning program. and Lead Safe Lincoln, and we coordinate with both. Urban Development is a very strong partnership, and we're also partnering with LTU in their support for the lead pipe replacement project. And then our child care centers, we work a lot with them. We work with Lincoln Littles and others. We provide training. That we also do inspections and permitting. Our child care seat inspections are great. We have a great partnership with LFR. They help provide some of those places for people to go in the community. And we've been partnering with Lincoln Transportation and Utilities at some of the school sites to make it safe to walk and bike to school. And that's been another thing that's been really positive. And when you go in and do that, you're bringing the parents together. And they're helping to define what should be done and how it should be done. So it really has been very effective. And then our chronic disease prevention, I'm just going to mention a couple things. There's all the things that we do with tobacco and preventative health screenings and that. And another area that I want to just highlight is our wellness program for city and county staff. And I think that's been well received. We had a health fair probably at the beginning in May, and it was very well attended over here. These are grants and contracts on here. The health department has 47 additional staff that aren't in the health fund, but they're paid for through grants and contracts, just so you know. And then these last few slides are about our performance indicators. I'm just going to point out a couple in here, and you can look at these. Our contact tracing, we still want to keep that high level, and our performance management and nuisance reports the same, but we also added a new measure on good air quality and decreasing delayed dental screening for children. So those are two new measures that we're looking at. And we're also we've always looked at diverting toxic materials from the landfill. We're continuing to do that in animal bites, resulting in ER care will be the other area. And we're just beginning to collect that data. And then I wanted to follow up. I'm having a hard time seeing this. Okay, the next one that's new is our blood lead level and the bike pedestrian safety. Those next two are new ones that we want to bring forward. And then our newborn home visitation that relates directly to Family Connects. So those are the new slides, and that's all I have.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Lopez. I'm sure we have some questions, so let's start with other counselors. Do you want to start?
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah.
I just have one question. So with the interpreter services quadrupling since 2022,
yeah.
I mean, do you need more money for interpretive services or to hire staff, or, I mean, because I could only imagine it's going to continue to grow,
Yeah.
you know, from 2024 to 2026, whenever 27. Do you feel like that you have enough money in the bank to take care of that?
Well, it is a concern to us as we're moving forward. So we're watching that closely and continuing communication about what we might need to do. Jeff, do you want to step up and just say where we're at?
And while he's stepping up, I'm going to add on to this question because I had a question in the same vein. I know that you talked about that when you reach a certain level of contract services of a language that you consider bringing that language in with a staff person, and I'm just interested in which languages are you getting the most increase that you would consider bringing them in.
Yeah,
right.
Carrie can tell you. I can't name all 8 of them right now, but she does a good job saying them all.
So I would say currently, this always changes based on the refugee populations that we're resettling in the community, but currently it's Spanish, Ukrainian, Pashto, Arabic, Dari, Farsi, and Karen.
And
probably the top 7 in addition to others.
And our 4 full-time staff, we have 2 Spanish-speaking staff and.
Pashto and Karen.
All right.
And Pashto was new for us and working with that with the refugee resettlement. So why we see our numbers increasing so much is we have more refugees coming into the community too.
Thank you.
As far as the contracted interpretation services, we're on track to do actually $400,000 this fiscal year. $300,000 is in the health fund and animal control. $100,000 are in grants. So there's a $300,000 hit to our budget for the external contractors. And I think next year, I try to keep the numbers in line, so I'll only put $250,000 in next year and the $200,000 year after. Hopefully we can bring on more, staff, part-time and full-time staff to take care of that, to reduce our overall costs. Their billing rate's like $60 an hour. So once we have enough demand for a certain language, then we can hopefully hire another permanent or part-time staff and cut our overall expenses down.
And one of the things we have to compete with is what's going on in the community. And some of the interpreters are getting $50 an hour. I'm sure you've probably seen what's happened in the judicial system with that. But we've been fortunate to get people that want to come on, and we've been fortunate to be able to use indirects to hire them and bring them on full time.
And I would just imagine medical translations, it's a whole other ballgame,
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we feel more comfortable with some of our staff that we have, full-time there, because they assimilate into part of the team, and they get to know and have relationships. But the most important thing is that we provide interpretation services for people where they're at when they need it.
Yes.
Well, and there's apps to do it too, but as far as the medical community, using a phone app, just, you need somebody there. It's just more personable, and, that's just.
I'm sure none of us would want to go to the dentist and not understand what somebody's really doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or, we have some of the families come in and they have complex health concerns because every refugee family that settles here comes into our department. And I should mention that we can bill DHHS for some of those services. I omitted that. So that helps offset some of our costs too.
Okay. And can some of those interpretation services be billed back to the federal government, State Department for settlement? No.
That's what that DHHS
Oh, that's okay. So that's going to the state.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah. Anyone? I've got a couple of questions. When you talk about and I appreciate that the dog bites are on the rise. It's a little scary, but as the dog bite, you talked about working with ERs on dog bite notifications, and I am curious whether or not that's also you're being notified through urgent care. And I don't know how many people go to urgent care over that, and certainly one of our hospitals has a number of urgent care facilities, so I'm assuming that database is shared between
Yes.
urgent and ER of that.
Right. And I'm glad you asked that because we do work with the urgent cares, and they're good reporters usually
Yeah.
to us. But yes, we do work with them. And then, once when we know about a bite, we follow up with the family too.
Yeah. And then my last question I don't know how much of a question it is. It's sort of a comment. I mean, I'm very interested in the heat plan that you're working on, especially when it crosses over into walkable neighborhoods, safe neighborhoods, crossed over with sort of the Parks Department. I was talking with them earlier about trees. And then some conversations I'm having with CHE around fitness, youth fitness, and whether or not neighborhoods are walkable, are families able to get out and walk in their neighborhoods just as temperatures rise, and we think long-term. I'd be very curious to have those conversations and make sure that we're connecting across multiple departments.
Yes, and we are. And just recently there was a meeting with Parks, Aging, and that's another population that's very vulnerable. And I'm forgetting the third one. So they've sat down and gone through a lot of those plans. and looked at some areas in the community where we could do things, but we're going to continue to develop more of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we're taking our first steps. And it's been good to work with urban development and planning to think about what are we looking at in our community when we're approving new development and what we're doing and what can we do to reduce the heat impact.
Yeah, thank you so very much. All right. If there's no other questions, I want to thank everyone this afternoon who's come forward to provide us information on the budget. And I'd like to bring John Carlson back from the mayor's office, and maybe Lynn Heaton, if you could just stand by, the director of finance, just to see if we have any global questions about information for the budget. I know in the last couple of days, we've heard a lot. I know we're processing a lot of information and are going to come back with lots of questions and requests for information. But do any of us have questions just in general for either the mayor or the finance director? I have a number of Post-its. I'm not going to read through my Post-its right now, but I will make sure the Post-its are written clearly, and then I'm going to be sending emails just to make certain that we've got a handle on the information that myself or other counselors have asked for.
Yep, no, that sounds great, and I know that the budget team and different directors have been taking notes, so we already have one list just from things that we've heard here today. But again, just to reiterate, thank you again for hosting everybody here. This really is the beginning of this phase of the process. There's the first phase where the mayor develops the draft budget to present it to the council, and I do want to take a minute to shout out to Lynn Heaton, finance director, and the budget team for the tremendous amount of work that they did to get the draft budget pulled together, to then present and start this phase where the council then takes over and starts to begin their work for the next 2.5 months to get us to the budget hearing and the final review on that. And as you mentioned, plenty of time for more questions, more meetings to get all the information that you need. I just threw that up on the screen so the viewing public has an idea of kind of the outline of how that budget will move forward over the summertime. And we will all continue to work together to make sure that the investments we're making in the community are providing the outcomes that the community desires to make this a great place to be.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to the continuing budget conversation until we get to the end of August. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.